After inheriting billions of dollars, Dick Grayson has a plan to save Bludhaven, and not just by fighting villains.
Gotham Heights Park. A long time ago, there were a group of boys bullying someone. There was a young girl who tried to stop them, but one of the boys was Shelton Lyle. Shelton was a very privileged kid, perfect teeth, wealthy family, but it wasn't just the attention of the girls that the boys got. It also struck a chord with the young Dick Grayson. By this time, Dick had already lost his parents to Tony Zuko, so there really wasn't anything that could hurt him. Shelton commented that he saw the last act of the Flying Graysons at the circus and said that it was the greatest show that he had ever seen. But that didn't faze him. Dick stood his ground, telling Shelton to leave these kids alone. Shelton took a swing, but Dick, being rather nimble for his size, used it and easily headbutted Shelton without so much as taking his hand out of his pockets. Of course, this led to a brawl, which now also brought the attention of the police. Shelton asks if they know how much trouble they're going to be in. His dad owns the cops! And the little girl asks, "Do you really think that they'd listen to you over me? What do you think, Dad?" And behind the little girl is Jim Gordon. Jim brought Dick home, and little Barbara was amazed that he lived in a castle. Thought that the lack of dragons and a moat was a little disappointing though. As Dick went inside of Wayne Manor, Jim explained to Alfred what had happened, and Dick started to quietly wash the dishes, with Alfred stopping him. "Why are you doing my job?" Dick says that even if it was, he still wants to help. Alfred then begins to dry the dishes, stating that he heard that there was a fight, and that he fought 3 other students. Dick says that there was a kid, and the others were hurting him. "I'm sorry." Alfred laughs, telling him that Master Bruce may feel the need to wear a costume to be a hero. "But I am glad that Dick Grayson stood up when someone else was in need. It takes a different hero to help out without a mask." Now we go to the current times, 2021, and a group of college students run after a small dog, throwing rocks and kicking it. Gotham has a madness in it, but this is Bludhaven. These people are just cruel. After kicking the puppy one last time, Nightwing steps through the fog, stating, "Usually I'd open up with something disarming and witty, but I'm not usually this disgusted." One of the men from the group yells that they were just having some fun, and Nightwing asks, "Your idea of fun is torturing small animals? You really need to broaden your horizons." The student reaches into his jacket, pulling out a gun, stating, "Well, I guess the fun is over," and he points it at the dog. Nightwing bats the gun away with his baton, and he starts to take down the group, stating, "I am not going to let you shoot a puppy in the head." And in his experience, the next thing is the dog waking up without its memories, driving a cab. With or without amnesia, a dog shouldn't be behind the wheel of a car. As the college students run away, Nightwing takes off his glove and he holds it out to the puppy, telling it that he isn't going to hurt it. The dog growls and bites his hand. Nightwing picks her up and pets her. "That's okay. Let's just get you to the vet so that I can go to the doctor." But meanwhile, elsewhere, Blockbuster holds a secret meeting with the mayor of Bludhaven. As Blockbuster waits, the mayor says that he does have office hours and an office. Meeting at night under a bridge feels like a way to attract trolls. Commissioner McLean opens up a briefcase of paperwork, and Blockbuster says that a number of his businesses have already been stagnating. The council president, Melinda, looks at the paper asking if he has spreadsheets, really putting the organized in the organized crime. Blockbuster tells her not to pretend to be shocked by a well-run operation. And the mayor asks, "Why are we out here? What do you expect me to do?" Blockbuster tells him that he's expecting him to do as he was told. "And you have failed." As the mayor begins to ask what would he have had him do, Blockbuster grabs him by the head, telling him, "We are having this meeting so that you can be made an example out of." He begins to apply a bit of pressure, and the mayor's skull cracks. He then begins to clean the blood from his hand, stating that the mayor's body will be found. "As council president, you will be next in line. Your job will be to serve the city, and I am the city. Do we have an understanding?" Melinda tells him, of course, and Blockbuster goes on stating, "I spoke to your father. He's a killer, but he is not a liar. I understand that you are estranged, but Tony spoke highly of you. Congratulations, Mayor Zuko." Back with Nightwing, he heads home after a visit to the vet, and then to the doctor when he notices something strange. He owns the apartment block where he lives, paid for when he had Wayne money, but he's quickly running out of funds. But something's wrong. There's someone in his apartment. Without giving him a chance, Nightwing suits up, jumping through his own window, but is quickly thrown against the wall. As Nightwing lays upside down against it, he looks up, and Barbara says, "Surprise!" And if you're going to operate as a superhero out of an apartment, you need better security. You might have some cutting-edge stuff, but anyone with years of experience trespassing and advanced defense-disabling technology wouldn't have a problem. There is something I need to tell you, though, Dick. Before she could continue, she hears a bark and asks, "What's that?" And as Nightwing brings the dog in, Barbara screams, stating, "Oh my God, it's so adorable! Welcome to your forever home, little girl." Nightwing says that this is not her forever home, but Barbara tells him that once he brought this thing through the window, it became her forever home. Just accept that you have a fur baby now. But as to why I'm here, as Oracle, I was chosen to be the executor of Alfred Pennyworth's will. While you were not yourself, Dick, a lot has happened. You should take a seat. A few moments later, Nightwing looks at the laptop and says that it has a lot of zeros. Barbara tells him, yeah, Alfred was a billionaire who liked to make sandwiches for those he cared about, because he wanted to. She then takes out a letter, handing it over, stating that this might also help explain a bit. She didn't open it. As Nightwing sits, he opens up the letter and begins to read a letter from Alfred to him. Alfred said that he knew leaving his fortune to him would be a bit of a shock, but as Master Wayne's legal guardian, he was given a large amount of Wayne Industries stock, as well as a ludicrous amount of wealth he never had a need for. He invested much wisely in places that it would do the most good, which, in fact, he planned on coming to him for. Like Bruce, his mind is astonishing. He can think in ways no one else can. He is a problem solver, and the world is full of problems. There would be no one better to leave this fortune with. Just know that he does believe in Dick Grayson, and that he knows that the world will be a better place with more people like him wanting to help those in need. And above all, though they rarely say it out loud, he was very proud to call him his son. Meanwhile, in Upper Bludhaven, Melinda comes home and her bodyguard asks how did it go. She begins to wash her hands from the blood transferred from Blockbuster's handshake, stating that she is now the mayor. And the bodyguard asks if she's ready for this, and Melinda says she is. She is not, however, ready for him. The bodyguard says that she can't wait long. She may not get another chance. And Melinda looks at the poster of the Flying Graysons, and Nightwing specifically circled, and she says that he knows soon. Nightwing has spent his entire life working without a safety net, because he always had someone to catch him if he fell. First it was his parents, then his father, then his other father, then his friends, and then his brothers. Everyone needs someone to catch them when they fall, someone who makes them feel safe. But while Nightwing's new dog passes out from eating too much food, he looks at her empty bowl and says that he kinda wonders what it tastes like. Babs says that she's going to guess he hasn't eaten yet, so Nightwing tells her, "Nope, come on, I know a nice place nearby." So a short while later, they're at a 24-hour pizza place. Nightwing orders 2 slices, and Babs asks, "Really? You're a billionaire now." And Nightwing then decides to order 4 slices. But as they get their pizza, Nightwing says that there's a statue that he wants to show her. So the two head to the park, with the statue of a man fighting a giant sea creature. Nightwing says that Bludhaven started as a small whaling town. This fountain was built back when people in the city believed that they could take on monsters and win. And as they sit, and they look in silence, Babs looks over asking if he's okay. He's unusually contemplative today. Nightwing says that he forgot who he was, and Babs tells him, well, sure. He was kind of shot in the head. Can't really fault him for forgetting who he was. Nightwing then asks, what did he leave behind though? What did he create that kept going when he was gone? What's so heroic about punching bad guys and then waiting to punch more? Babs says that there's more to it than that. He has saved lives, and pretty sure that he saved the world more than once. And it's not like he has confidence issues. He wears the tightest costume out of everyone in the group. Nightwing sighs. He looks down and he contemplates again. I want to do more, Babs. With everything that Alfred left me, I kind of can. I'm just not sure where to focus this. Babs says that he's one of the world's greatest problem solvers, so she's pretty sure that he'll work it out. But while the two begin to eat their pizza, a man with his son says that he's sorry to bother, but would they happen to have some spare change? Babs says that she really doesn't carry cash, and the man says that that's okay. Most people don't these days anyway. And Nightwing stops, and he stares for a moment. Hey, wait, let me buy you some food. Like lots of food, and whatever else you need. And invite friends, really, anyone who could use a meal. Don't hold back. So, a short time later at the pizza shop, the street is filled with all of Bludhaven's drifters that could go for a bite to eat. 3 young kids ask if it's okay to take theirs to go, and Nightwing tells them of course. The man from before says that he can't thank them enough, and Nightwing smiles. It's really nothing, Martin. But as Nightwing gets ready to set up a hotel room for them, he notices that his pocket is a little lighter. He looks around and says, I think those kids stole my wallet. Don't tell Batman. Babs laughs. Too late, it's already in the group chat. Nightwing stares as his phone begins to ping rapidly. And as they leave, Babs says, you might want to put that on silent. Cass has no self-control when it comes to emojis. But while Nightwing heads out to go back and get his wallet, Martin and his son begin to walk home when someone tells them that looks like some good pizza. Martin asks the person if they'd like a slice, and the figure tells them that it's more of a stab than a slice that he's after. Tell the kid to run. As an arm with a strange-looking gun creeps out of the shadow, Martin tells his son, Elliot, go back to the pizza shop and stay there. Everything's going to be okay. Once Elliot is gone, the person tells him, no, it's not going to be okay. Martin tells the person, please, I don't have anything, but the figure says, you have exactly what I'm looking for. As the trigger is pulled, a small mechanical arm shoots into Martin's chest and then quickly retracts. Martin looks at the fist-sized hole in his chest and the figure tells him, you had a heart. Elsewhere, Babs guides Nightwing towards the tracker that was in his wallet when she tells him to stop there and look around. He stands on top of the building looking into the crowd when he notices Salvatore Maroni meeting with a woman. Unknown to Nightwing, the woman that Maroni is meeting is actually Melinda Zuko, the soon-to-be new mayor of Bludhaven. But while the two discuss their business, Nightwing sees the three kids from before walking by, spotting a wallet on the table, and one of them quickly pockets it. As Maroni's men catches them, they pull out their guns and they begin to run, but Nightwing rushes down, knocking them out. As he's going down, Nightwing tells Babs, you know, we could have avoided all of this if we just stayed in and tried the kibble. Babs tells him, nah, this is far better. You can't beat the combination of pizza and taking out overconfident goons. Also, the wallet stopped 3 blocks back under the Nugent Bridge. Go after the kids, I'll call the police. As Nightwing jumps down onto a passing truck, he tells her that there's no point. They're Maroni's people, they won't even be charged. Babs tells him that those men were about to kill children. She's still calling. But while she does that, Nightwing hurries over to where the signal last pinged to find a tent city for the homeless people. But by the looks of it, a tent city where no one is over 16. As all of the children look at Nightwing, one of them asks if he is the man without a heart. Please don't hurt anyone here. Nightwing tells her, no, I'd never. Sorry. Just keep whatever it is you took. You need it more than me. A short while later at Nightwing's apartment, Babs says that he was right. The police did nothing. She has no idea how he can put up with this place. She then asks if he even got his wallet. He tells her no, but he knows what he wants to do with his money. And that is to be a safety net for this city. He wants to catch who's ever fallen in Bludhaven. As the dog sits by the door wagging its tail, there's a knock at the door and someone says, Mr. Grayson, police, we'd like to have a word. Nightwing hurries over, opening it up. Sorry, I was asleep. And the detectives tell him that it's 5 in the afternoon. Did he have a late night? Nightwing pauses. What is this about? The other detective says that he reported his wallet stolen last night, canceled all of his cards. Well, before reporting his cards stolen, a hotel was booked for Martin Holt. Nightwing says, yeah, that was me. Martin didn't steal my wallet. Hopefully you didn't have any trouble at the hotel. The detective says, well, yeah, but Martin never checked in. He was found murdered this morning. This causes a bit of shock for Nightwing. What? What about his son, Elliot? Is he okay? The detective says that they don't have any information about a son. Interesting that he does. Just down the street, Barbara answers her phone asking, what, missed me already? And Nightwing tells her that it's something like that. Could she come back? Pretty sure he's being accused of murder and she's his alibi. After getting dressed, he puts on some coffee and the detectives state that Mr. Holt was found dead this morning. His heart was removed. You don't know how, do you? He sits up asking, why would I know? The detectives tell him because he paid for the hotel for Mr. Holt. They don't want to theorize about why, but they're thinking that he didn't like a proposition and something went wrong and he cut out his heart. Just like he'd been taking the hearts of homeless people all over the city. That's when there's another knock at the door and Barbara walks in asking how's it going. Nightwing tells her, you know, I'm being accused of murder. How about you? She takes a seat and says, hello, my name is Barbara Gordon. I was with Dick Grayson all night. I have a GPS on my phone and I'll be happy to show you our movements for the last 24 hours. The detective tells her that they understand. But what is her relationship to this man? The two look at each other. Nightwing tells her, I've been wondering that myself. She tells them that that's not relevant. And the detective tells her that they will decide what's relevant or not. This is a murder investigation. Barbara says, really? Because I have a law degree. Now, we're both eager to help with your investigation, but if you're accusing Mr. Grayson when he has an alibi and there's absolutely no direct evidence linking him, that would be embarrassingly incompetent. With nothing else, the detectives leave, and Nightwing says that they've got to find Elliot. But what's more, though, is that the killer cut out Martin's heart. Yesterday, when he chased the kids into the tent city, they asked if he was the man without a heart. Barbara says that she'll start going through the police records to try and find out anything useful. So Nightwing suits up and says that if his hunch is correct, they're going to need more specific help. Later, as he's heading up to the rooftop, Tim Drake says that Batman wanted to give him something and hands him a wallet with a chain on it. Nightwing looks at Tim. I'm not going to live this down, am I? And Tim tells him, of course not. They go inside of the apartment and Tim asks, did you get a puppy? And Barbara tells him that Dick said that she was going to the pound. And Tim laughs, yeah, likely story. So, are you supposed to take the dog on the missions? Nightwing tells him, yeah. And Tim asks why. Well, people are more approachable with a lovable dog, but also, she needs a walk. So later, Nightwing gets into position above the tent city while Tim blends in below walking the puppy. After an hour, Tim radios back that he managed to find Elliot, but Elliot seems content staying there with the others, says he feels safe. He did mention that his father was killed by a man without a heart, though, and he isn't the only one. Too many kids in there have the same story. Nightwing tells him, all right, hurry up. We have trouble walking in. Betrayal and Executioner just showed up. One of the kids asks what do they want, and Betrayal says that the people here have been stealing and that's a crime. A cut of every crime in the city goes to Blockbuster, no matter how pathetic. We bend the rules for homeless kids, and Blockbuster will look weak. And Blockbuster doesn't ever look weak. Just then a baton bounces off Betrayal's head, and Nightwing asks, is this really where you wanted to be in life? Henchmen shaking down children. That's gotta be a career low. Executioner fires off an electric blast, but Tim jumps in, kicking and knocking him down. Nightwing then puts his batons together, screwing them in, and tosses it to Tim, telling him to catch. Together, the two take on Betrayal and Executioner on their own, but a stray knife from Betrayal shorts out Executioner's power. Nightwing tells them to go back and inform Blockbuster that this area is under his protection. And as the two look around, they see the tents on fire and the children screaming for help. Tim looks back, asking the thugs if they're the ones who did this, and Executioner says, no, you can't get money from dead people. Tim radios back that something is off. He can smell the accelerant from here. This fire was deliberately lit. Nightwing tells him that he knows. It was them. Heartless. Through the fire, Nightwing can see Heartless standing there, staring right at him. Fire begins to spread around the homeless children's encampment, with Nightwing telling everyone to stay behind him. Barbara radios in asking what's going on, and Nightwing tells her that he's here. Heartless. Nightwing looks back at the kids, telling them to hang on tight. He's going to get them out of here, but that's the moment that Heartless takes out a fire extinguisher, clearing a path. Come on, kids. Off you go. Nightwing asks what is he doing, and Heartless tells him, I don't want to watch them die. I want to watch them run. He reaches into his coat, pulling out the gun that he uses to steal hearts, telling him, I've heard of you. Was hoping we'd get a chance to meet. Nightwing, Bludhaven's guardian angel. You must have quite a heart. The gun is fired, but Nightwing ducks, throwing his baton, but before it can even hit Heartless, he catches it, using it to smack Nightwing back with his own weapon. Barbara again asks what is going on, and Nightwing says that he just got hit so hard that he is seeing a concerning number of spots for a guy who should avoid more head injuries. Heartless follows up with a heavy punch, but Nightwing rolls out of the way just in time, telling him, you're fast and strong, but that's all you are. Your technique is terrible. You have the upgrades, but you haven't done the work, like you've tried to take a shortcut to supervillainy. Nightwing continues to dodge all of Heartless' attacks, but then jumps behind him to choke him out, telling him, it doesn't matter how strong you are, you still need to breathe. Heartless shouts in anger, throwing Nightwing off, and Nightwing tells him, that's it, get angry, I can work with that. Heartless gets back up, scoffing, this can wait, I can kill you later. And you expect what, that we're just gonna walk away? Heartless tells him, of course you will, because I know your pathetic weakness, you care. Heartless pulls out a small switch, telling him, all those kids are running? They're running towards the pier, which is where I wanted them to go. I wanted to see their fear. I wanted to see their faces. But it's okay. I can have a pretty vivid imagination. Nightwing quickly repels out, radioing to Tim. It's a trap! Get the kids off the pier! But before Tim has a chance to respond, Heartless activates the bombs, blowing up the only walkway back to land. The fire quickly spreads and Tim tells them all that he's going to need a better option than forcing a bunch of kids into the sea. You got any ideas, Dick? Nightwing continues to make his way over to them, telling Barbara to patch him into the Maritime Distress Channel. If they need help, they should try asking for it. Once the line is connected, Nightwing calls out, "Mayday, mayday, there are hundreds of children in need of rescue at the end of Bludhaven Pier 12, I repeat." For a few moments, there's nothing. Then all of the ships across the harbor begin to report in that they are on their way. The message has been heard. Nightwing stops for a moment. Not everything in the city is broken. "Barbara, alert the local hospital," but before he could finish his statement, he passes out. A short while later, Nightwing awakens in his apartment asking what happened, and Barbara examines him, telling him that he lost consciousness. He is still recovering from being shot in the head and being hit by an enhanced supervillain. Nightwing sits up. "Yeah, that would do it." Tim tells him that Bitewing was worried too, and Nightwing's dog begins to wag her tail and bark. Bitewing? It's actually great, but her name is Haley. Tim asks if he's really going to tell the people in this room that they can't have two names. And Barbara says, "I have three. But while you were out, I did some digging. The woman that we saw Boss Maroney with the other day, I found out who she is." As Barbara holds up her laptop, Nightwing looks at the picture and a headline stating Mayor Zuko. And Nightwing asks, "Wait, what?" Barbara says she did more research. She's Tony Zuko's daughter from his first marriage, but Tony didn't stick around past her 8th birthday to raise her. Nightwing sighs. "Well, that's a positive." And Tim tells him that she was raised by the Maroney family instead, and Nightwing says, "Right. That's so much worse! I really wanted to help clean up the city with the officials, but this is going to make it a lot harder. I'll pay Melinda Zuko a visit and see what I could find out." But Barbara tells him, "Absolutely not. You need rest. Your injuries aren't something that you can just brush off." So, Nightwing rests, long enough for Barbara and Tim to leave. There's no way that he was going to sleep in when the criminal daughter of the men who killed his parents is now the mayor of his city. He sneaks over to Melinda's apartment, breaking in, and when he does, Melinda's bodyguard waits for him around the corner. As she swings, Nightwing ducks, rolls, kicking the sword away, but still manages to be thrown off balance enough to be knocked down the stairs. Melinda comes out of the next room with a bat, stating, "It's okay, Audrey, I've got this," and all Nightwing could hear after that was a loud thud. So a short while later, Nightwing shakes his head, waking up again. He could already feel that his arms and legs are tied up, and wait, there's more. His mask is gone. As Nightwing looks up, Melinda holds up the mask. "Dick Grayson?" In a fit of anger, Nightwing rips the ropes, telling her, "You know me? Well, I know you too. You worked for the Maroney crime family and you're the daughter of Tony Zuko." Melinda says no, she's not. She thought she was for a long time, but when she learned the truth, her real father is John Grayson. "I'm your sister." As the dimly lit room falls silent with that news, Nightwing stands still for a moment, processing what he was just told. "I've studied my family tree. I'd know if my father had other children." Melinda begins to question him, but he quickly pulls out his mask, and he says, "Hold on a second." In his earpiece, Barbara is shouting, asking if everything's okay, and Nightwing tells her, yeah, call off whatever rescue is about to take place." She tells him that they attacked him, and Nightwing says that these people defended themselves from a masked man who broke into their home. As the call goes out, everyone turns back, and Nightwing lets out a sigh of relief, with Melinda asking if everything's okay. He tells her, yeah, he almost had a building full of very overprotective superheroes. Anyway, let's talk. A few moments later, in a quick change, Nightwing asks who is he meeting, and Melinda walks into the next room, stating that this is her mother. Nightwing steps in, and the older woman turns and looks at him, quietly gasping. "Oh my god, it's like looking back in time. You look so much like John. You have the same kindness in your eyes, and there's Mary shining in that beautiful Romani smile." She looks over at Melinda, asking what has she told him, and Melinda says only who she was. She thought that the rest best come from her. So she explains that her name is Malie Lin, and this all began a long time ago when she was 23 and paid for when she came to this country. Tony Zuko was violent and possessive, and she had no interest in being possessed. So one night, Tony took her to a circus, and that was where she took her opportunity to escape. She ran away, blending in with the crowd, and when Tony went looking, he found John. Tony was, well, quick to point his gun, asking where she went, but of course, John wasn't having it. There was a scuffle, and both Mary and John were about to take Tony down when they were stopped by the ringleader. When asked what he was doing, Tony said that he was looking for his wife, to which the ringleader said no one has come by except the performers, and with that, he kindly asked Tony to leave. Once Tony left, the ringleader asked if she is in his trailer, and John told him of course. So after that, she joined the circus, traveling with John and the others. But please understand, this was before his parents were together. John and her weren't involved very long, but long enough. Tony eventually found out and came back to take her back, and he and his thugs hurt John pretty bad. It was after that she gave birth to Melinda. Tony's ego wouldn't allow him to voice what he suspected, but he always knew the truth, and he got angrier. The next time that she escaped, Tony didn't try to stop her. He was going to bring Melinda to the circus to see John, but then she found him. They all looked so happy performing together. John, his new wife, and Dick. And after everything that they had done for her before, they didn't deserve this. They didn't deserve an illegitimate child, a woman fleeing again, so she left. She had always planned to come back one day, but before she found the courage, Tony killed them. She was always so sorry for what happened, for what that cowardly, abusive man Tony Zuko did to them and to him. But you have a good life now, right? You're loved? Nightwing tells her yes. Mei Lee nods, stating, good. She's glad that him and Melinda finally have a chance to meet. And did he hear? She's now the mayor. Nightwing says that he knows. It was wonderful to meet them, and as much as he wanted to, Nightwing held back, wanting to say sorry that her daughter was also a criminal. As the two leave, he asks, your mother doesn't know the truth, does she? About who you really are? Melinda says that he doesn't know who she is. And just then, there's a knock at the door, and as Audrey looks out, she sees dozens of armed police in a large, looming shadow. As the lights shine through the room, Melinda asks what's happening, and Audrey says that it's him. It's Blockbuster. Seconds later, Commissioner McLean calls out over his speaker, this is the Bludhaven PD, come out with your hands up! Blockbuster says, 2 minutes, and I'm going in, Commissioner! Back at the other side of the door, Melinda says before whatever this is happens, he needs to know the truth. Nightwing tells her, I do know the truth. I've seen your FBI file. Melinda tells him that what he probably saw was a file with more redaction than words. Fine, tell me you don't work for Boss Maroney and Blockbuster. She says that she doesn't, but both men certainly think that she does. Her file will tell him that she grew up with the Maronis, but what it won't tell him is that she brought down 2 crime bosses from the inside. Now she's worked very hard to get to where she's at, and she plans to do the exact same thing for Bludhaven. Nightwing is stunned. Wait, really? You have difficulty believing that someone could have a double life, Dick? I thought about what kind of person you might be for years. And do you know that my brother is Bludhaven's guardian superhero? We can help each other. We can bring these people down. Actually, we can do even more. Nightwing says, I was about to do something and well, I want to tell you. I want to believe you. McLean yells over the speaker that they know that Nightwing is in there. So Nightwing gets changed, telling her, right now, they need to think that I'm a dangerous vigilante that just broke into the mayor's home. After 2 minutes, Blockbuster kicks down the door, seeing Melinda and Audrey tied to the chairs and asks, did Nightwing get anything from you? She tells him no. Did he have people watching her house? Blockbuster unties her. Of course. I protect all of my assets. Where is he? Audrey motions her head towards the open window, informing Blockbuster that Nightwing went that way. So Blockbuster turns, charging out through it. Outside, one of the helicopters calls out that he's on the roof, so Blockbuster jumps up, landing in front of Nightwing. I'm so over men who think that they're so powerful, the law doesn't apply to them. And I know Mayor Zuko is working for you. I'll find a way to prove it, Blockbuster. Doesn't matter. I own the police, the courts, even Bludhaven. No one would act against me, Nightwing. Sure, you scare a lot of people, but don't confuse fear with respect. Plenty of people would like to see you face some consequences. Blockbuster charges in, punching down where Nightwing is standing, and as Nightwing dodges, he says, this isn't a fight we should have. It's a long way down. Right! Fire! Suddenly, a turret on the helicopter opens fire onto the building, with Nightwing beginning to run towards it. As he gets closer, he leaps up, shooting 2 hooks from his batons that latch onto 2 of the officers, and uses that to swing up under the chopper and up through the opening. After tying the men up, the pilot holds out his cuffs, telling him, just take us in the chopper. So, a few days later, after getting some rest, Nightwing lands on a building. Superman flies over to him, asking, what brings you to Metropolis? Nightwing looks at the Man of Steel. I have an idea, and I thought I might need some advice from someone with a unique perspective. From an alien? No, one of the most human people I know. Alfred left me a lot, but I don't think that there's anything heroic about being a billionaire. I'm sorry about Alfred, Dick. I looked up to him. Nightwing asked, wait, Superman looked up to Alfred Pennyworth? Of course I did. The world would have been lost without the heroes that he helped raise. Without his generosity, his love, his support, the two of us are a lot alike. Now, what's your idea? Later, as the sun rises, Superman says that is quite an idea. And Nightwing tells him, yeah, I'm worried that it's too small. No. It's not small, it's focused. If you're successful, the rest of the country, the rest of the world could see that's possible. But you already know about this. You don't need anyone else's input. You thought it through enough. Superman then begins to fly up, telling him, I need to grab dinner, but I have a favor to ask. I might have to go away for a while, and a lot's going to fall on my son, John. It would mean a lot if you could give him some guidance and maybe some friendship, Dick. Of course. If you think it'll help, I'll be there. Superman tells him, honestly, I couldn't think of any better role model. Thank you. So a few days later, Nightwing is looking out of his apartment stating that there's a lot of press outside and it would be easier with a mask. Barbara tells him that he's talked about it for days. He knows what he's doing. Does he know what he's going to name it? Nightwing tells her he does, but before he goes, he wants to say thanks for her friendship. If it wasn't for her, he wouldn't be able to. But Barbara grabs and kisses him to stop him and says, go get him, Boy Wonder. After taking a deep breath, Nightwing steps out, speaking into the microphone. My name is Dick Grayson, and I've just become a billionaire. But I don't believe any one person should have so much when others have so little. So I'm giving it all away. I've decided to use it to establish one of the world's largest self-sustaining foundations. I'm going to be helping targeted areas elsewhere in the world, and the bulk of this wealth will go directly into Bludhaven. This will be the first phase. I want to help. So today, I'm announcing the Alfred Pennyworth Foundation. As he finishes his speech, he heads back inside, and everyone texts him about what a great job he's done. Even Batman calls to let him know that he honored Alfred today. Meanwhile, elsewhere, two men are watching the news, and the first says, Dick Grayson, and the second asks, do you know him? The Shadow Man says yes. His first. He owes him so much. Grayson made him into what he is today. The plans that he has for Bludhaven don't really line up with him, though. Heartless sits in his chair holding a jar with a heart in it, stating, I'll have to take his heart before he gives it to the city. With Dick Grayson coming out publicly about his money and wanting to change Bludhaven, he has gotten the attention of a lot of people as Dick Grayson. Some of those people are not happy with his imaginative goals, though. While on his way to a meeting about public housing, Babs gives him a call telling him that he needs to get off the streets. Someone has put a price on his head. Dick says that it wouldn't be the first time that someone has put a bounty on Nightwing. He annoys a lot of people, but that's the beauty about having a secret identity. Bab tells him, no, the hit isn't on Nightwing, it's on Dick Grayson. No sooner than Bab tells him that, but a group of assassins pull up on the side of the road and begin to open fire. Dick stating, okay, people are trying to kill me in broad daylight. What's the price? Babs tells him that it's 10 million, and Dick says, that's a lot for wanting me dead. Kind of hard to not take it personally. He ducks into an alleyway to change into his Nightwing costume, and Nightwing says that he needs to get home, but Barbara says that is the last place that he needs to be. It's just not safe there. Nightwing tells her that it doesn't matter. His alarm is already going off, and she's there. Barbara switches mindsets, telling him to get home now. As Nightwing jumps into his apartment building, fighting through the hired gunmen, he gets to his apartment, and he can already hear Haley barking from downstairs as one of the men jumps into the back of the van carrying the pup. Nightwing then leaps back out, swinging through the streets, landing on top of the speeding van, grabbing the passerby, telling the driver to pull over. Another gunman appears from behind, trying to shoot him off, but as Nightwing stumbles and falls, a passerby on a motorcycle quickly jumps off, telling him to take the bike. Following a tracker on Haley's collar, Nightwing makes it to an old abandoned warehouse where Babs meets him in costume to take down the assassins. Together they bust in while Nightwing takes the low ground while Batgirl takes the skylights. Within seconds, the two dispatch the men and they make their way to the office where the leader of the group is holding a gun to Haley, telling them to stay back. Nightwing grabs his baton, stating that this is cartoonishly evil, and he throws it, knocking the man out, causing him to throw Haley out the window. He rushes out, jumping through the window after her, catching her, and as Batgirl follows, the three swing off into the night as Batgirl says, "Good girl," and Haley barks as her face flaps in the wind. The next morning, Dick Grayson is off to another press meeting, but this time at the Bludhaven docks. which is another chance for the unsavory to make an attempt on his life. Dick Grayson tells everyone that he wants to thank the city and the mayor for having him here today. Until recently, tents full of unhoused people were occupying where they stand, while the Alfred Pennyworth Foundation works with local groups to house every young person who has ever lived here. For this to work, they can't take away the home that they've already made. So instead of removing it, they're going to improve upon it. This will remain the hub for their community, for their friends, for the people who make them feel safe. And today they're going to break ground on Haven. Just as the first shovel hits the ground, there's a loud bang out of a rifle. Across the way, Starfire bends the barrel of Gun Bunny's rifle, stating that she is in a lot of trouble. Over the radio, someone asks if it's done. Report! Gun Bunny? As Gun Bunny tries to run, Donna pulls the earpiece out, telling the person that she is sorry, but Gun Bunny can't come to the concealed earpiece right now. As the two report back to Babs that they got the person attempting to assassinate Dick Grayson, Babs tells him that she knows Gun Bunny, and Gun Bunny doesn't work alone. Gun Hawk is somewhere. Beast Boy radios in, stating that he doesn't see anything, and Babs tells everyone that they need to pull Dick out of there. At that moment, Gun Hawk leans out of a window from a nearby building and takes a shot, but suddenly Dick disappears in a red and yellow blur. As the Flash comes to a stop holding Dick, Dick asks what is he doing here. Flash tells him that he knows exactly why he's here, to save him. So the next question is cradle or piggyback? A few moments later, over at Mr. Terrific's labs, Mr. Terrific sees Dick riding on Flash's back. He chose piggyback? Definitely the preferred option. As Dick climbs down and shakes Mr. Terrific's hand, asking what's going on, Mr. Terrific tells him that Flash thought that they should work to protect him. Flash then says to come follow him so they can try out his new suit. Dick looks at the Nightwing suit, and Mr. Terrific tells him that given his civilian identity is under threat, they have built it thin enough to wear under his regular clothing. This suit will be more flexible and mobile. Most bulletproof material remains vulnerable to stabbing attacks, but they've worked on making this Nightwing suit defend pointed attacks. Dick says, "You guys built a suit for me?" And Flash laughs. "Well, Michael did most of the work, but yeah, being one of your best friends, I have a vested interest in you not dying." Back at the docks, more gunmen arrive looking for Dick Grayson, shouting to the crowd asking where did he go. And Melinda yells that they're making a huge mistake. There will be consequences. As one of the gunmen turns to her, a voice calls out, and Nightwing swings in, kicking the man, yelling, "Consequences have arrived!" Starfire and the others charge in, and Nightwing asks, what are they all doing here? With Beast Boy stating, "Of course, dude. We had this long conversation with your dog and decided that we're going to back you up on this." Bitewing is very persuasive. But while Nightwing and the Titans are cleaning up the rest of the gunmen across town, Blockbuster slams his fist on a table, yelling, "Someone! Anyone! Report!" Suddenly, there's a flash of light, and as Raven teleports the others in, Beast Boy says, "I'm pretty sure we got them all here." Blockbuster then shouts that they are trespassing on his property. That means that he has every right to, and Starfire walks up asking him, "Do what?" "You've confused being large and cruel with being powerful. Would you like to test your theory?" Beast Boy says, "Oh, you should definitely test it. It's going to be hilarious." Donna then says that from this point on, Dick Grayson is under the protection of the Titans. As Raven teleports everyone back out, Blockbuster radios to Gunhawk asking what is happening. Over in that apartment, Gunhawk is thrown against the wall, asking, "What the hell, man?" And Heartless says that he was about to take Dick Grayson's heart. "It belongs to me." Gunhawk gets up, stating that he has 10 million reasons for stopping that heart from beating. He doesn't care what weird, but Heartless slams him into the wall again, asking, "Who hired you?" And after a few moments of struggling, Gunhawk tells him, "Blockbuster! It was Blockbuster!" "Of course it was. I'm going to have to get a bigger jar to hold what I take from him." Which leads me to my next question. Is there someone who will miss you? Someone who relies on you? Gunhawk tells him, "Yeah, there is. Bunny. We're everything to each other." Heartless tells him, "Perfect." And he takes Gunhawk's heart. Long ago, Batman and Nightwing went out following the path of a destructive, superpowered person. They followed him to a cave, and Batman says to be cautious. They don't know. At that moment, two laser beams shoot out, nearly cutting the two of them, and they pull back with Batman asking, "What happened?" Nightwing asks, "What happened? He's hiding in a cave and a giant bat showed up." After taking off his mask, Nightwing walks into the cave. "Look, I'm sorry about that. There's nothing to be scared of. My name is Dick, and I'm friends with your dad. It's good to meet you, John." Superboy sits there, his eyes still glowing, and Batman radios in, "We found him." Before Batman can even get his hand off the earpiece, Superman is already there, holding his son close. John says that he flew. He knows that he shouldn't do it at night, but he did, and he got lost. And he kept getting lost. Nightwing reaches into one of Batman's pouches on his belt, asking John, "Guess what Batman keeps in here?" Lollipops. Now, some sensible person pointed out that he keeps them dangerously close to the smoke bombs that are in similar shape and size. But he's pretty stubborn. Want to see me juggle? John wipes his face. Sure. And now we go to the current times. The grown-up John looks for the same comfort that he received back then by placing a crystal into a terminal, and Superman appears asking, "What's wrong, son?" John tells him, "There's a creature coming from Metropolis. I turned it around, but people died. It's one of the hardest things about what we do. We choose to help, but we can't help everyone, son. We can't save everyone. We can only do our best." John tells his father that he feels responsible, but Superman tells him, "It's not your fault. You have to not think about the ones that are lost, but think about the ones that you saved." John sulks. "Lives aren't numbers, Dad." Superman sighs. "No, they're not. I'm sorry. This isn't what I was hoping for when I called you, Dad. I can't have the real thing. I would prefer some solitude." Later, over in Bludhaven, Babs sits up in bed telling Dick to wake up. There's a robot petting his dog. Without a second thought, Dick grabs a baton, chucking it. But Keelix catches it, telling him, "You dropped this, fast, in my direction." Dick grabs the baton, asking, "What are you doing here?" "Kal-El said to seek you out in case his son needed you." So the next morning in Metropolis, the former Titan Risk jumps and dodges a group of villains, stating that now that they are clear of the civilians, he can hit back. But then he's blasted by a laser and Risk laughs. "Ha! You guys know I'm invulnerable, right?" And the attackers tell him, "We know." They slam into Risk, dragging him over into the water, holding him below, telling him, "Even if you're invulnerable, you need to breathe. The rising has begun." So later aboard the floating headquarters of the Truth, Dick goes to meet with the Truth's leader, Gossamer, who's actually Superman's boyfriend, Jake Nakamura, in disguise, with Superman pretending to be Gossamer's assistant, and he's really bad at hiding himself in a mask. Dick shakes Gossamer's hand, stating that he's doing important work, and Gossamer says that what Dick is doing in Bludhaven is inspiring. So Dick then says that he's more than happy to continue to fund what they're doing, but truth requires trust, and it's hard to trust information when it comes from a masked man. The assistant, aka Superboy, says that there's no way that he can take it off. It's not about him. Someone close to him is in danger, and they would be under more threats if Gossamer were to reveal himself. Dick tells them that he understands, but he has had a lot of people out to get him recently. Still, at that moment, Aerie and Wink fly down, and Gossamer asks, "What is it?" Aerie says that there is a dead body that has been found in Metropolis Harbor. A superhero's body. Dick turns and says that obviously they need to get to work. We can meet up again when things have calmed down. But once he's away from everyone, he whispers, "I know I'm being heard. Meet me at the crime scene." Later, as John is hovering, asking Nightwing how did he know that he was John, Nightwing says, "I'm a pretty good detective, and I've spent a lot of time around people in masks. Masks are effective, but you can't rely on them alone to hide your identity. You also need to work on another voice when you're wearing one. It might sound ridiculous, but it's an important part of all of this." The two look down at the ground where Risk was dragged, and John asks if he knew him. And Dick says not well. Risk was a Titan once, one of them. Risk was invulnerable and strong. Whoever did this had to be stronger. Judging by there not being any footprints, they're possibly dealing with another superpowered person. Oracle then radios in, stating that she just found that Risk wasn't the only person killed last night. An empath was killed in Brazil, and a telekinetic person was thrown out of the sky in Spain. John looks down as scans, seeing a faint trail of energy left behind by the attackers, and he begins to follow it. Nightwing asks if he found anything, and if he did, where does it lead? And John says, where almost everything bad leads to in Metropolis. Nightwing looks over in the distance and sees LexCorp. John tells him, "Lex Luthor." Now we go back in time a little bit, to 3 days ago, when the former Titan Risk was killed in Metropolis. You see, he was experienced, invulnerable, and strong, but whatever he was up against was stronger. On that same night, 2 more superheroes were found murdered. And since then, Oracle has ordered all superheroes to not work alone. However, one superhero in particular kept working alone. As a group of men load a truck full of illegal firearms, one is struck in the head with a baton and then struck down by Nightwing. He begins taking the men down, stating, "It's an awfully nice night. Why would you guys spend it trafficking illegal weapons?" But his actions in Metropolis have caught the attention of those responsible for killing heroes, as he's now the only superhero working alone. 3 people begin to float above him, and one tells him that he can't run, but Nightwing smiles. Actually, I can't. Half this job is cardio. Nightwing then fires his grappling hook up onto a nearby building to get eye level with the foes, but the first one tells him, "You can't escape. The Rising is here." Nightwing asks, "Is that what you're calling it? Aren't you guys being a little overconfident just blurting it out there like that?" The man grabs Nightwing by the neck, throwing him off of the building, but as they watch them plummet, he seems oddly comfortable, and then they see someone flying up towards them. John Kent rockets up, punching the villain's back, telling the group, "I would like to ask you a few questions." Meanwhile, on Gamora, the one known as President Bendix watches the situation, asking why Superman is there. He's supposed to be out of the country. One of the men says that they watched him fly away. He shouldn't be here. And John tells them, "Sure, but the world is round. I just kept flying and ended up back here. Nightwing thought you were spying on him." The man asks, "Well, shouldn't you be saving Nightwing?" And John tosses the baton over the ledge. Nah, Nightwing doesn't need saving. Over the ledge, Nightwing gracefully falls as he activates the glider in his suit, catching the baton and using it to grab onto the building and fling himself back up onto the roof, with everyone asking, what did I miss?" As all 3 of the villains attack John, to no success, John says, "You all seem pretty angry." Energy then shoots by Nightwing's head as he tilts his head to avoid it. And he says, "I don't feel like I'm pulling my weight in this team up." And John laughs at him. "Being bait is an integral part of our team up, but feel free to join in." The first man then attempts to headbutt John, and as he breaks his own nose, he tells the others to retreat. Nightwing asks the question, "Who headbutts Superman?" The other 2 end up flying back towards the LexCorp building, and as John scans it, he notices a massive, complex tunnel system beneath the building. As John asks, how does Luthor even get contractors for a job like that, Nightwing then asks, "Why don't we ask that guy? He tried to headbutt Superman. Clearly he's not the brightest." So back at Gamora, Bendix yells to the operators to terminate him, activate speech control, and start the countdown, maximum blast. Suddenly the man's tone changes, and Bendix tells John through the man's voice that John is not Superman. He is a child in his father's clothing. And while looking back at the man who's now being controlled by this mystery Bendix person, John sees a small implant beeping. The man suddenly refers back to himself, asking, "Superman?" And before John could do anything, his head explodes. John stares for a moment, and Nightwing steps out from behind him, asking if he's okay. After seeing John's defeated face, Nightwing reaches out, and he hugs him. Later that night at John's house, Nightwing walks into John's room, stating that it was a rough night. He isn't going to tell him what he doesn't want to hear, but he's been in that same headspace before. There's no point in telling him to stop feeling guilty, but he will sit here and drink tea with him, so he doesn't have to be alone. Or he could juggle for him again, like that day in the cave. John laughs and says that that was effective when he was 9, but does he think that his dad would have found a way to save him? Would the real Superman have saved that man from the explosive? Nightwing says that he had to step into Bruce's shoes before. He's been Batman. He knows how hard it is to be the replacement hero. John asks if he felt like he belonged, though, like he earned the title of Batman. Nightwing laughs. Hell no. Turns out, I do have a superpower, though. It's called Enhanced Imposter Syndrome. The trick is working out that you're not going to be the hero that you worship. You have to be your own. John hangs his head. You were my hero. Always thought you would swoop in and save me when I was lost or scared. As John goes on explaining his prison on Earth 3, the one where he aged, there's a sudden shout of his name and Nightwing jumps into action, grabbing the first thing to attack with, a stuffed mammoth plush. Stepping out of the wall asking, "Dick Grayson?" And Nightwing says, "Yes?" Lois asks what is the matter, and John tells her that everything's okay, and Nightwing asks, "Is it? A guy walked through your wall, John!" Lois kicks in the door with an overly sized energy gun, yelling, "What's going on?" Everyone stares at each other for a moment, and John says that it's okay. "Jay, tell them who you are." Jay looks at Nightwing and says that he's the editor of The Truth. And Nightwing stops. "Seriously?" Jay taps on his tablet, stating that someone exploded in John's arms. Gamora released satellite footage claiming that the man was a hero, and that John was the one who killed him. Nightwing asks Lois if she's ready to stomp some lies, and she tells him of course. So Nightwing tells John that he doesn't need to worry about this, they've got his back. And remember, you're not alone anymore, John. As some of Bludhaven's elite sit in Blockbuster's building, Blockbuster tells everyone that in exactly 5 minutes, Dick Grayson will die. Maroni says that there's a lot of proficient killers that have failed before. What makes this time different? Blockbuster says because this time he has gone directly to La Agent Fumbre. McLean asks what is that, and Nightwing's half-sister Melina says that she is just a myth, but Blockbuster tells them that she is not a myth, just very expensive. But he is frustrated and has decided to pay a premium for their certainty. And La Agent Fumbre's agent doesn't care about collateral damage. Dick Grayson's entire apartment building is about to be taken out. Meanwhile, over at Nightwing's apartment, he's laying in bed with Haley when he suddenly gets a ping on his phone. Normally, he would keep more things silent because just the bat chat alone doesn't end. But for him to actually hear a notification, that message must be important. He looks at it, and it's from Melina, which says that the building is about to be hit. Get out. He quickly leaps out of bed and begins to run, but remembers that his apartment building isn't just him anymore. There are tenants who live here. As Nightwing smashes the fire alarm, shouting that there's a fire, one tenant comes out telling him that Mr. Maurice is on floor 3. He doesn't sleep with his hearing aid in. He hands Haley his dog to the lady, telling her to go ahead and get the kids out of here. He'll get Maurice. He runs back into his room, changing into his costume, kicking in Maurice's door, grabbing the hearing aid, but Maurice sits up shouting, "Who are you and why are you here stealing my hearing aid?" Nightwing stops, stares for a moment, and says, "No?" But Oracle radios in, stating that she just picked up a warning that something is entering the Bludhaven airspace and it's moving fast. It looks like a military drone heading straight for the building. Nightwing grabs Maurice, smashing out the window, getting ready to jump out, but as he does, he sees a missile shooting right towards him. As the missile zips right over, he leaps out, grappling onto the building, but some of the debris then flies back, hitting him in the head. And a few moments later, over in Keystone City in the West Home, Linda wakes up when she hears a notification on her phone going off. She looks at it, stating that it looks like there's an explosion in Bludhaven, and as she looks closer, she realizes that this is Dick Grayson's home. Before she can even finish questioning where this is at, Wally West is already out the door and running to Bludhaven, asking the residents if everyone made it out. The woman from before says Dick Grayson went back in for Mr. Maurice on the 3rd floor, but Wally didn't need to hear any more. He started getting to work pulling away the rubble, trying to find signs of his buddy Nightwing. He'll do whatever it takes to get to him. So much so that with his fast healing, he actually breaks his fingers several times over getting the rubble out. But as Nightwing lands with Mr. Maurice, he looks over. Flash? And Wally runs over hugging him. Sirens can be heard in the distance, and as they get closer, Wally tells him, "Good, the police are on their way." But Nightwing tells him, "Yeah, but this is Bludhaven. They're actually probably looking to finish the job." Wally asks him what does he mean, and Nightwing motions towards the destroyed building. "This entire attack was about me, Wally. I'd better get changed and show face before people start worrying." But Wally brings up a rather good point. You see, no one knows where Dick Grayson is in this fire. Maybe he should stay low for a moment while they figure out who is trying to actually kill him. Before Nightwing can even object, Wally picks him up and runs him back to his house so that Nightwing can stay with him, Linda, and the kids. Linda comes out telling him, "Hey, is everything okay?" And Nightwing tells her that he's just a little disoriented. And Linda jokes, "Did Wally bring you here without warning first?" He does that. It's terrible. So the next morning, at the commissioner's office, McLean begins his investigation on the apartment building, interviewing the woman from before, asking if there's anything that she can tell him about the explosion. She says that there was a fire alarm, and Dick Grayson said that there was a fire, but she didn't see any smoke. McLean says that he appreciates her time. Mr. Desmond has generously offered to pay for a hotel room for any of the displaced residents. As she leaves, McLean grabs his phone, calling Blockbuster, stating that either La Agent Fubre isn't as effective as he says, or someone in their meeting tipped off Grayson. Back at the West household, Nightwing wakes up from a night of much-needed rest, and Wally says that he started making a board of all the people who wanted to see Dick dead. Nightwing says that that's the thing. There's been a lot of hired guns, but they were only ever shooting him. A strike on the apartment was more of an unrestrained thing. He should probably talk to his sister. This, of course, surprises Wally, as it probably did most of our viewers. "What? Your sister?" And Nightwing explains it. "Yeah, she's on the inside. She's the mayor of Bludhaven." Wally feels like he's missed out on a few key important details. So, Dick begins to explain who Melina is and how she's related to him. But back over in Gotham, Barbara Gordon walks home when she's approached by a group of men. One of them flashes a gun, telling her that she'll survive this if she cooperates. They just want information on her boyfriend. Detectives have interviewed her twice about Dick Grayson's apartment, and but Barbara yells that that doesn't make him her boyfriend. Honestly, we really haven't put a label on a relationship yet, so after a few moments, she radios over stating, "Hey, I just got kidnapped at gunpoint and thrown in the back of a refrigerated van. Are you busy at the moment?" Nightwing asks where is she. She tells him that she's pretty sure she's headed west on Tim's and 6th, white van, license plate 2GA-T213. So it doesn't take very long before the van pulls up to a warehouse and the driver gets out looking at KG Beast, the man that shot Nightwing in the head many months ago, causing his amnesia. They explain that they have the package, so KG Beast gets ready to question her. But as they open up the door, it's Nightwing and Wally West that jump out. But Wally stops asking, "Wait, isn't that the guy that shot you in the head?" Nightwing tells him, "Yeah, it is." And Wally goes on, "We have a long list of friends who want to get their hands on this guy. I'm glad I'm first." KG Beast and the gunmen open fire, and Wally rushes out, cracking KG Beast in the head, telling him that he knows that this can't be heard because he's moving too fast, but he wants to say it anyway. This will be the last time that he ever points a gun at Nightwing. "You tried to murder my best friend. You almost succeeded. So I'm gonna make sure to stop you each and every single time. I have all the time in the world." And once he disarms KG Beast, he moves over to the rest, tying them all up. But he missed one thing. KG Beast was holding onto a remote, and he presses the button, stating that he thought that this might happen. So there's a contingency plan in place. "The remote is to a bomb somewhere in the city. You have 1 hour until it blows. You don't have time to deal with me and the..." And Nightwing simply interrupts him. "It's over in the Gotham library." "How the hell did you know that?" The van is full of bomb-making equipment, and the last place the van's GPS searched for was the library. Plus, you just admitted it. Flash, can you? Wally runs off, and Nightwing turns back to KG Beast. "Now, who are you working for?" KG Beast says that they both know that he won't talk, so Nightwing pulls off KG Beast's mask. "Yeah, we'll see." "What? You wanted to see my face when you get to the torture part of this?" Nightwing smiles. "No, I just needed your face to unlock your phone." Later back at Wally's house, Barbara gets to work sifting through KG Beast's phone, with Nightwing asking how's it going. Barbara tells him that she found whoever he was working for is working very hard to hide, and doing as good as a job as she has ever seen. This person has no number, no service, no name. It's like whoever KG Beast was calling doesn't exist. But at that moment, Nightwing gets another message from his sister. All it says was "La Agent Fumbre." Barbara says that those people are a myth, and Nightwing tells her that he thought so as well, and that's also what Batman thinks. But Damian once swore to him that this person was real. Barbara looks back at her computer, realizing that she can't get the exact location of the number, but she did narrow it down to a cell tower. Everyone looks at the screen, and they realize that the cell tower is in the middle of the Central American jungle. And Wally tells them all that it looks like they're on their way to Costa Rica. As they step outside, Wally turns to Nightwing. "All right, how do you want to do this? Piggyback or a cradle? You have traveled to the future. You have met 100 Flashes. Did none of them come up with a better way to carry someone?" Seconds later in Costa Rica, Wally stops in front of the mystery cell tower. Nightwing asks, how do they want to do this? And Wally rushes ahead, telling him that he'll scout the place out. Suddenly, several explosions go off, and Nightwing calls out to his friend. But Wally comes back. "Yeah, I'm okay. I found a classic villain lair, and guess what else I found?" Nightwing asks him, "You found landmines, didn't you?" "Yeah, I found landmines!" Nightwing then grabs his batons, telling him, "Well, whoever's out there, they know we're coming, so there's no point in hiding." The two approach the lone building as several assassins step out, and Nightwing notices something about them. They weren't expecting them. It's clear that they're used to fighting as individuals, whereas him and Wally have been working as a team since they were kids. So as the last of these killers are taken down, a helicopter begins to take off, and Wally makes a dash for it, bouncing off of an invisible wall. As the helicopter lands, a woman wearing a skull mask steps out. "That force field was designed to stop anything moving quickly. Mostly bullets and projectiles. But I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought of super speeding heroes when it was installed." As she pulls out 2 blades, she readies herself in her stance, and Nightwing looks her up and down. "You are La Agent Fumbre." Without another word, she begins to attack, and Nightwing has to make an effort to dodge each strike. She isn't just fast, she's good. She's a master, and she doesn't do anything flashy. No lunge is for appearance or flair. Every hit is designed to hurt, to incapacitate, or to kill. She isn't afraid of fighting dirty. She doesn't want a fair fight. There's a quick flick of the wrist as she takes out a small blade, thrusting it into Nightwing's chest. But before it can land, he can already smell the poison. Her eyes are smiling through the mask. He's about to be dead. At least that's what she thinks. Wally and Mr. Terrific built his suit to be stab-proof, so it just takes one hit to knock out the infamous assassin. Moments later, Wally begins to wake up. Did I, run into a wall? Did we win? After tying everyone up, Nightwing heads inside to access her computer and says that he can contact all of the assassins from right here, and no one would know that it wasn't sent from her. Wally tries to convince him to shut it down, but Nightwing tells him, we're gonna use this. So he gives many of the top assassins marks for them to neutralize, but the targets just happen to be many of his close friends in disguise. Back in Bludhaven, as all of the assassins are being taken off at the table by Nightwing's friends, Lady Shiva steps into Blockbuster's office. He asks if she's here about the Dick Grayson job, and she tells him no. This is a courtesy. For the first time in generations, La Agent Fumbre has been discovered and apprehended. Over 20 of the top assassins are in custody. One was found dead with his heart removed. Dick Grayson is protected from on high. No one will touch this job. If you want Dick Grayson dead, you're gonna have to do it yourself, Blockbuster. Gotham was no stranger to blackouts back then, but even with things seemingly like they would never get better, Nightwing was never one to run away from someone who needed help. In fact, he ran towards them. During one of the many blackouts of the city, as Robin, Nightwing saw a man being chased by a group of looters. Batgirl was on her way, and Batman was busy dealing with his own fight, but he told the young Dick Grayson that there was nothing that he could do. Stay out of it. Do not engage. But no matter the threat, when Nightwing saw someone in danger, he leapt in. That night, his actions saved a life, even if it was at the cost of his own safety. By the time that Batgirl got there, it was already too late. Nightwing was beaten and nearly left for dead, an early lesson for his Robin days. She too would have fallen if not for the help of one Alfred Pennyworth. When Batman was finally able to return to the manor, he began to make his way to Dick Grayson's room, asking where is he, but Alfred stood guard, telling him, calm yourself, sir. Batman yells that he told Dick Grayson not to engage. Alfred says that Master Grayson did what he felt was right, and he saved a life. Batman tells Alfred, step aside. Alfred lifts his hand. No, we could have lost him tonight. I know that that scares you. But for once, you will not turn your fear into misplaced anger. You will direct as much of that fury towards me. But Master Richard is hurt. He needs comfort, not admonishment. Take off the cowl, leave your disapproval at the door, or do not enter, Bruce. After a few moments, Batman enters, maskless and humbled. Nightwing tells him that he's sorry. And Batman sits at the edge of his bed telling him, you don't have to be sorry. You did what you felt you had to, but you need to remember you can't protect everyone. The young Nightwing looks up, and he tells him, maybe, but I can try. And that moment has followed Nightwing all the way up to our current day as he tries to turn Bludhaven into an actual haven. He wants a place where they can go beyond just free food and shelter and transportation. But while walking through the grand opening of his haven, Nightwing sees someone that he didn't expect. Bruce Wayne is standing there with Ace the Bat Dog. Nightwing tells him that if he's here in case there's trouble. I appreciate it, but Flash has been running a constant circuit around the entire area faster than anyone can detect. I know. I saw him. Nightwing smiles at Bruce's matter-of-factness. Of course you did. Bruce then says that he's here because it's a big day. He wanted to be here. But they both know that he wouldn't approve of the statue. Nightwing tells him that he knows, and, well, he doesn't care. None of this would have been possible without Alfred. The statue's not just for Alfred, but for them as well. They all take a moment to reflect as they look upon the statue of Alfred, but a voice cuts through the crowd as Blockbuster calls out Dick Grayson. Dick was not expecting him to be there, and Blockbuster tells him that this is his city. Nothing happens without him. They argue about it back and forth for a moment, with Blockbuster telling him that he finally got what he wanted, and Nightwing tells him, yeah, despite all of the attempts to stop it. They discuss bureaucratic roadblocks and the mayor's office in general. But Blockbuster really breaks down what he's doing there into a simple question. Was it wise for Dick Grayson to appear in person when everyone is trying to stop him? Bruce Wayne steps up, telling Blockbuster to be careful who he threatens, but Blockbuster just smiles. He reminds Bruce Wayne that he's no longer rich and he's no longer untouchable. But Dick Grayson pulls Bruce back, telling him, thank you for your concern, Blockbuster, but don't worry about my safety. I'm not opening Haven. we have a special guest doing the honors for me, and I'm not too concerned about speeding bullets. At that moment, Jonathan Kent Superman flies down to welcome everyone. And while all of the kids ask for selfies, Barbara asks Blockbuster if he's gonna get one too. The ceremonies begin and they seemingly go unhindered. And as night falls, a group of men begin to vandalize the Haven. The statue, the park, everything that Nightwing wanted to build. And he watches. Barbara asks if he needs backup, but he tells her no. He wants them to know that Haven is under Nightwing's protection, so he leaps off the nearby building and begins to take down the would-be thugs, and as he does, he begins to unmask them, telling them, "You don't get to hide! If you're going to do this, the world will know who was destroying their Haven. You don't get to destroy things built to better people." The men quickly panic, pulling back on their masks, and Nightwing asks if Barbara got them. She tells him that the city cameras were down, conveniently, but all of hers in Haven, they were working just fine. She got photos of their faces. And with that, Dick Grayson was able to donate his money and start up the Pennyworth Foundation. He was able to help Bludhaven the way that he felt he should have. But over in Blockbuster's office, he calls it in asking what exactly happened, and does Nightwing know that they were actually behind all of this? The voice on the phone tells him that he couldn't possibly, but then there's a loud banging coming from outside of his door. Blockbuster demands to know, why does it sound like Nightwing is breaking into his offices? He swings open the door to see our villain Heartless standing there, with several dead security guards. Heartless looks at Blockbuster. "I saw you in the park today, with Dick Grayson. I have a proposal." Bludhaven has always been a rough place to live, and that's why Nightwing is trying his best to bring order and peace to the city. And after last night's attack, it has only filled him with more determination. As Nightwing is getting ready to wash off the graffiti that is on Alfred's statue, his tribute, Barbara asks if he's okay. He tells her, not really. She then says that she's running facial recognition on the people who did this. Will exposing them and punishing them accordingly make him feel better? And Nightwing laughs. Yeah, it would, Babs. At that moment, Barbara notices activity in the park, and suddenly the voices yell out to Nightwing, telling him to freeze. Before he even has a chance to do what they say, they open fire on him, and he asks, "Are you shooting at me for cleaning?" He then throws the bucket of water, asking, "What's the bigger threat, the cloth or the bucket?" After knocking the officers out, he then hurries to grab his bike, and Barbara tells him that he needs to hurry up out of here. There are patrol cars coming in from every direction. As Nightwing speeds away, he looks back at the increasing amount of cars that are chasing him, stating, "Yeah, looks like I gotta get off this road," and he presses a button on his bike. Suddenly, a small grappling hook shoots out of the bike, latching onto a sign, whipping him around it, launching him up into the highway. But as he goes to land, the front wheel hits the edge of the barrier and he falls off with a hard thud. She asks if he's okay. He should probably stay in Gotham tonight, and Nightwing tells her, "Yeah, I'm on my way." So the next morning, he brings breakfast to Barbara at her desk as she tells him that she made a full database of the identities of the guys that he unmasked attacking Haven the other night. And he's going to want to see this. She brings up the name, and Nightwing asks if she's serious. And she tells him, "Yep. This is terrible, but also great. You're incredible. That's why I love you." Suddenly, the two pause for a moment at those words. That was not supposed to, come out. She then asks, "Are you sorry for stating that you loved me?" Nightwing thinks about it for a moment. Yes. No. And then his phone rings and he quietly sighs. Thank God. As he answers, Melinda says that she is sorry for calling him like this, but wherever he is, he's going to want to get out of Haven as soon as possible. He asks what's going on, and she tells him that the commissioner is using last night's attack to be a little extra grumpy. So a short while later, the police begin to detain the children of the park, and Nightwing, out of costume, walks up asking, "All right, what is going on here? What do you think you're doing?" Commissioner McLean asks if there's a problem, and Dick tells him, "Yeah, Haven is supposed to be a welcoming space, not very welcoming when these children are being treated like criminals." McLean says that a lot of these kids are criminals. They're just protecting the city. After last night, they wouldn't want anything else happening to this little project of his, would they? Dick says that he wants the officers out, but McLean smiles, telling him that he may need to accept that he is not in control of every situation. Dick then hears the squeal of the brakes as a new van begins to arrive, and he asks what is going on. McLean says that he invited the media here to talk about the terrible criminal activities that have occurred in Haven after only a single day of opening, and to talk about what the Bludhaven PD is going to do about it. Dick whispers into his earpiece, calling for Barbara, and she asks, "Now?" And so he tells her, "Now." Using Haley's paw, she hits enter with a boop, just as McLean begins to speak in front of the cameras. "Everyone, I am deeply sorry to see these things happening. This betrayal of so much goodwill. The people that built this would bite the hand that feed them like this." Dick interrupts him. "That is not true. There's a video of last night's attack, Commish." McLean says that he's afraid that there isn't a video. The city's cameras were forcibly taken offline last night. Besides, even if we did have cameras, the people who did this were masked. Dick then asks him, "And how would you know that?" Everyone here can judge for themselves just how helpful the footage is going to be. It's just gone live, and links have been sent to every major news network. The video then shows several of the perpetrators being unmasked, and all of them have been independently identified as members of the Bludhaven Police Department. As all of the reporters' phones begin to ping, they all look at it to see references, and they begin to call out to McLean for questions. He turns back to Dick. "Where did that video come from?" And Dick looks to him. "You just may need to accept that you're not in control of every situation, Commissioner." As Dick walks away, he says that couldn't have gone any better. "Thank you." But Barbara tells him that he should be thanking Haley. It was one of her new tricks. He laughs. "What a good dog. But we need to talk about what's next." And she tells him later. For now, just enjoy this. Seriously, we don't get wins like this every day. So later that night, Melinda calls McLean at home, telling him that the feds know that he personally was the one who ordered the attack on Bludhaven. She has someone on the inside feeding her information. He has 20 minutes until they come. He has a ticket waiting for him at the Bludhaven airport. All he needs to do is just tell her where Blockbuster's files are, because if they get those, they all go down. McLean opens his safe, telling her that he has them, and he's taking them with him. "There is only insurance. Thank you for the warning. I doubt we'll speak again." He hurries out of his home with Melinda hanging up, calling Oracle, stating that he took the bait. Get ready. So on the road, Nightwing catches up to McLean's escort, telling Barbara that he's got eyes on him. They just need to handle a few things first. After Nightwing lands on one of the motorcycles escorting the commissioner, the other one opens fire by Nightwing throwing a baton to knock the man off of his bike. He then spins the bike around, facing McLean head on. The two rev their engines, and Barbara says that she's pretty sure that this isn't how chicken works, and he's in a car. McLean isn't going to care if he hits you. Nightwing tells her, "That's what I'm counting on." And the two race towards each other, with Dick crashing into the front end of McLean's car, causing him to swerve and crash. As McLean falls out of the vehicle, Nightwing says that there are about 7 ways that they can do this. Do you want to know which of those is the least hurtful? McLean fires a shot, and Dick tells him, that was incorrect. The correct answer was option 3. He throws one of his batons, knocking the gun out of McLean's hand. And with no other choice, McLean desperately tries to fight and get away. Nightwing deflects the attacks, returning with his own, telling him, "You're the man who disappoints me the most in the city. Blockbuster doesn't try to pretend to be anything other than a power-hungry thug, but you put on a badge and you swore to protect and serve. You're everything wrong with Bludhaven, tucked into a uniform." After knocking McLean down, he picks up the briefcase and opening it. He's running to the airport. He has several fake passports and a boatload of cash. Not a good look, Commish. As the sound of sirens get closer, Nightwing picks up the Blockbuster files and McLean yells to give them back. But Nightwing fires his grappling hook, telling him that it looks like the feds have caught up to you. Good luck with that. The next day, the Attorney General holds a press conference announcing that Commissioner Gil McLean attempted to flee the country, but he was apprehended. The Bludhaven Police Department has been a dark stain of all of the law enforcement in this nation, and with the help of Mayor Zuko, they have brought in someone who they think might be able to help turn things around. That is why she's happy to present Commissioner Margaret Sawyer. Her work in Metropolis is well known, and they are grateful that she has agreed to help them here. Margaret takes the podium. "Thank you, and you can all call me Maggie. I'd like to thank the mayor for her appointment, and I can promise you that I and Dan Turbin will root out crime and corruption within the police force. No one will be above my attention. No one." As Blockbuster is watching the conference, the electrocutioner asks if they're going to make her disappear. "Don't ask questions. It makes me wonder why you want answers. But no, she won't disappear. It would just lead to more unwanted attention. Now get in the car." Later, Barbara begins to go through all of the files that Blockbuster had, stating that they had everything that they could have ever wanted. Investments, drop-off locations, transactions, payments to criminals, police, and government officials. Melinda said that the feds are already questioning McLean, but even if he gives them nothing, they have everything that they need. The plane ticket with his name on it, though, was a nice touch, Oracle. Barbara asks if she's really okay with all of this, and Melinda says that she watched McLean drag the former mayor's body away before he disappeared. She isn't about to lose any sleep over this. Talk to you all later. But as she hangs up, she gets another call from Blockbuster, and he tells her that he is not pleased. Melinda tells him that she was given a list of names, and she picked who would be the least effective. Sawyer was the commissioner of Metropolis. How much crime has she had to deal with in a city with Superman? She didn't have much time. Blockbuster then says that she should have found time to talk to him, just like she should now. He's currently waiting for her in her mother's home. Melinda hurries to her mother's to find Blockbuster there and her mother pouring him tea. Can we go for a drive? Melinda tells him of course, but whispers something to her mother that she'll be okay. As Melinda and Audrey get ready to get in, Audrey is stopped by one of Blockbuster's men telling her that it's a private conversation. She gets ready to take a swing, but Melinda tells her it's all right, and Blockbuster says that he promises not to keep her out too late. As the door shuts, Blockbuster says that they're being challenged. Haven, now the commissioner, a man even threatened him in his own building 2 days ago. They look weak, and he doesn't like looking weak, and it all started with Dick Grayson. Grayson took a part of my city. He should have died when his building blew up, long before this happened. Commissioner McLean questioned a woman from the building, and she said that Dick sounded the alarm before the attack. And I know who tipped him off. As the door to an abandoned warehouse opens up, the electrocutioner sits in a chair beaten, and Blockbuster looks to Melinda. It was him. It was a rat in our own ranks. He and Brutal were the only people in the room aside from us and Maroney when I shared the plan. He's the only one that we can't trust. Melinda asks what are they going to do to him, and Blockbuster says that they're going to send him a message. Actually, they're going to send him a lot of messages. So Melinda then asks, has he admitted to anything? No, but he will. Melinda grabs a pair of clippers, telling him to leave it to her. She'll find out exactly how much he knows. Blockbuster nods and leaves, and once he's gone, Melinda hurries over to pull the tape off of his mouth. Relax, don't scream. I'm going to get you out of here. After untying the binding, she calls Nightwing, telling him a man is about to die because of her tip-off, and Blockbuster's here. She needs him to. But that's when Electrocutioner shocks Melinda, and then calls for Blockbuster to come back. It was her! She was the rat! Nightwing yells over the phone, asking if she's there. Answer him. And Blockbuster picks up the phone. I'm afraid Melinda can't come to the phone right now, Mr. Grayson. And then crushes it. A short while later, Melinda begins to wake up with Brutal stating, Hey, welcome back, Madame Mayor. Blockbuster's pretty pissed at you and now he wants some information. But before she could answer, there's a knock at the door. Brutal gets up telling Blockbuster that she's awake. And as he opens the door, Nightwing jumps in with a kick while throwing a baton and knocking out the Electrocutioner. Melinda looks up asking how did he find her, and Nightwing says that they tracked the ping off of her phone before the call ended, and Audrey followed them. But as Nightwing is helping Melinda to her feet and they begin to walk out, it's Blockbuster that stops him. I am very disappointed to see this. Nightwing grabs his batons, telling him, I guess we're going through him. Blockbuster shouts out, There is no going through me! And he starts charging at them, a car crashing into him with Audrey opening the door. Everyone, get in! Brutal and Electrocutioner come out asking if everything's okay, but Nightwing helps Melinda in and Audrey drives away. Meanwhile, at the police station, a detective sits McLean down, telling him that he's never been a big fan, and he's more than happy to put him away. McLean folds his arms. Oh, I'm not going anywhere. There's a file on Blockbuster, and I'm not giving it to you unless you grant me full immunity. The detective tells him, So, you'll turn the files over if you're promised protection? Yeah, and only if Maggie asks nicely. Well, that's a real shame, because that's not what Blockbuster wanted to hear. Without any hesitation, the man pulls out a gun and shoots McLean in the chest. Later, Melinda meets with Maggie, explaining that she was working with Blockbuster in secret. And Maggie says, Suppose I believe this. Why tell me? Melinda says because now Blockbuster knows that she is working against him, and she has something that he doesn't know that she has. She has paperwork on Blockbuster, and if they're going to take him down, they gotta do it fast. They have to act tonight. Maggie asks how are they supposed to do that? She doesn't have enough cops that she trusts, and their chief witness was just shot. Melinda is stunned. McLean was shot? Probably because Blockbuster thinks that he has what we have. Maggie goes on stating that she doesn't trust anyone anymore. She's on her own here. And then a familiar voice tells her, no, you're not. As Melinda and Maggie step up onto the roof of the garage, Nightwing and Batwoman are standing there, and Nightwing says, it's good to have you in Bludhaven. Superman spoke highly of you. As character references go, it doesn't get better than that. Nightwing then says that they have people. They'll do the work. They'll catch Maroni and Blockbuster's lieutenants in the act. All the police department has to do is be there and make sure that everyone is processed by the books. Maggie says that even if she wanted to, she doesn't know who she can depend on in the department. So Nightwing hands her Blockbuster's file. This is a list of every cop that has taken money from Maroni or Blockbuster. Maggie looks at the file. I get why you're here. So I'm trusting what you're saying. But I've made a mistake trusting Batwoman before. The two of them stare at each other for a moment, and Nightwing steps in. I don't know what this is, but this city has been run by a corrupt and violent man. We have an opportunity to carry out the single biggest strike against organized crime that Bludhaven has ever seen. Are you in? Tim, the Titans, and the rest of the Bat family all respond to the comms. Yeah, we're in. And Nightwing tells the family, thank you. Seriously. Barbara then begins to lay out the plan, explaining that Blockbuster and Maroni have 4 major crimes planned for tonight. There's a shipment of arms coming into the Bludhaven docks, a cargo plane trafficking people, and a few tons of very poorly made, very harmful substances being trucked in. And Boss Maroni himself will be at a rare jewels buy. If they take down Maroni and Blockbuster tonight, that will leave them in a position they can't recover from, which will give Commissioner Sawyer enough time to clean things up. As the time comes and each crime is thwarted, the calls come into Blockbuster and he calmly gets up from his seat in his penthouse, telling Brutal and Executioner to come. We're going for a drive! They pull up to Haven, and he pulls on an RPG. It's time to remind them who owns this city! This is my city! This is not their Haven! Back with the others, the cleanup and arrests all begin as Sawyer and her teams arrive. But before anyone can celebrate, Barbara radios in that they have a problem. Haven's been hit. Nightwing and Batwoman rush down as the buildings are burning. And Nightwing says they have to evac everyone. He runs into the library where he sees Blockbuster already there with 2 children telling him to lose the sticks or he squishes them. Nightwing tosses his batons and Blockbuster tells him, good, now get on the floor, face down! Nightwing does as he's told, and Blockbuster releases the children and steps down on Nightwing's back. Did you really think that anything would change? I own the city! He then lifts up both fists, bringing them down with a thundering toom. Nightwing lays there, in a crater created by the hit. Blockbuster looks down to see his mask have fallen off, and he realizes that Dick Grayson is Nightwing, and his anger only increases. Nightwing comes to with Blockbuster telling him, this entire time, I've been fighting against the city's most frustrating rat, and there was another pest behind the mask, like a Russian nesting doll of vermin. Nightwing places back on his mask, asking him, you think this is gonna be easy? Perhaps not. Executioner Brutal, merge on my location. Nightwing tightens his fists. Sounds like that'll take a few minutes. Good. More than enough time to take you down. He begins to knock Blockbuster back a bit, jumping over, grabbing his batons, and activating the taser function on both ends. He then uses them to give his hits a little extra effort. He tells Blockbuster that he's so sick of men like him. Men who could do anything, and they choose to hurt people. Men who have everything and still want more. The city deserves so much better than you. Blockbuster wrestles Nightwing off of him, shouting, this is my city! And Nightwing fires the grappling hook, latching on to Blockbuster. He pulls the cord tight, rushing in with both feet forward, kicking Blockbuster in the face, knocking the giant man over. Barbara, fully suited up, says, I just arrived. And Nightwing tells her, don't worry about me. Take care of the evacuation. Haven's on fire. Barbara stops him. Actually, it's not. The people of Haven came together and they're helping put out the fires. Nightwing continues fighting against Blockbuster, telling her that it looks like Bludhaven is putting out your fires. The city is fighting you, and they know everything about you. As Blockbuster is being beaten down, he calls out to Brutal and Executioner, asking where are they. And just outside of the library, Barbara and Batwoman are stopping the both of them. Yeah, you're not going in. There's a private meeting going on behind these doors. Brutal tells the other thugs not to hesitate, but Barbara takes out a tablet, telling them, hang on. Sure, they can attack and not win, but before we all leap in, I have something that you should all definitely see. Back inside, Blockbuster grabs one of Nightwing's batons, crushing it. You are not the first in the city to try and stand up against me. After I'm finished here, I will break everyone who has ever helped Dick Grayson, everyone who has ever known about you, everyone that you have ever loved. I will find all of them. Nightwing coughs, asking, you think you know who I am? You don't know Nightwing. You don't know Dick Grayson. Because if you did, you would know that there's no way in hell either of us would allow you to hurt our friends. He launches himself forward with a kick that sends Blockbuster out of the library and into the street. To add insult to injury, the kids then throw a bucket of water on him, telling him that this place doesn't want him anymore. Blockbuster gets up and begins to run to his limo, telling Electrocutioner to open the door. But Electrocutioner stops. Actually, no. We know what you did. The heroes showed us. You own Bludhaven. I did 2 years there. It's the worst prison I've ever done time in. 2 years of my life stuck in hell, and it turns out it was all because of you. Blockbuster looks up into the driver's seat, calling out to Brutal. Brutal tells him, nah. I had friends in Bludhaven Private that didn't survive the place. I don't work for you anymore, and once word gets out, no one will. Good luck with your angry mob. He drives off with Electrocutioner making it very, very clear with the amount of obscenities that they don't work for him anymore. Later, once all the fires are put out, Barbara runs up the stairs to find Nightwing, asking if he's okay. He tells her not really. Blockbuster knows who he is. Barbara, it won't be safe for us to be together. Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon can never be together. She looks at him for a moment. Screw that! I love the part of you that wants to protect everyone, but this is one noble sacrifice I'm never going to accept. What about the danger? We're superheroes! We're always in danger, Dick! Darkseid could attack tomorrow. Kite Man could fall out of the sky at the wrong time. Trigon could step on me. I get that a storm could come, but we'll stand in it together. I'll even bring the umbrella. So I'm going to say something, and it's going to mean that you have to fight off a lot of Bruce's more toxic programming, along with your own stuff. But you're allowed to be happy. Frankly, so am I. Are you happy? With me? Nightwing looks her dead in the eyes. My life has been in constant danger for months. I've been shot at, beaten up, blown up. And I think this is the happiest I've ever been. Good. Let's keep going. Oracle and Nightwing, Batgirl and Robin, Dick and Babs. Forever. Nightwing tells her that it sounds pretty perfect. And she kisses him, telling him that he's worth dying for. But meanwhile, elsewhere, Blockbuster runs through an alleyway when a shadow steps up in front of him. What cape wants their head caved in now? And Heartless responds, bad day. How? I killed you. You did. But I got better. And your time is up. Heartless fires his heart-removing device, pulling out Blockbuster's heart. I had to modify the machine a bit since you're a bit oversized. Didn't want to clog the tubes. Your corrupt heart will still be the center of Bludhaven. It will just be beating in my chest. This is my city now. With Blockbuster finally stopped, it's time to dismantle his empire across Bludhaven, starting with one of his prominent figureheads, Salvatore Maroni. After being arrested and in jail for a while, Maroni didn't fully realize what was going on in the city. Specifically, he was unaware of the death of Blockbuster. But Blockbuster was a smart man. He kept details on everyone, including his own men, like spreadsheets of murders. When Commissioner Maggie Sawyer laid out all the evidence against Maroni, she reminded him how corrupt the BPD is. And should this information get leaked, he'd have a lot of unhappy mobsters. So without much of a choice, Maggie Sawyer does what she does best. And she tells him that they need to corroborate on what's in these documents so that they can bring down the operations before they have a chance to kill him. However, since they have an issue with protecting people, they will be getting a little help from Gotham City. Renee Montoya walks into the interrogation room, telling her that the deal they have is that they move tonight. They're going to be bringing Maroni to Gotham. Maroni asks, why would I be safer in Gotham? And Maroni tells him because sadly, they know how to keep scum alive. Just look at the Joker. As the sun begins to set, Montoya places Maroni into an armored truck and begins to make her way back to Gotham, when suddenly a passing semi-truck plows into the side of them. The truck takes out a few police cars following, but worse yet, it rams into the armored truck, turning it on its side. Montoya checks to make sure that everyone is okay, and once she knows that they're all alive, she kicks open the back hatch to try and get away. But no sooner does she do that than her men step out. The criminals trying to kill Maroni open fire on her, forcing her to take cover. Montoya tells one of her officers to get Maroni out of there, but as the officer goes towards Maroni, he instead pulls a gun on him. But before he can pull the trigger, and his grimace stick clocks the corrupt officer as Nightwing and Batgirl pull up to offer support. Montoya looks at the officer. "What the hell?" And Maroni yells that her own man was about to put a bullet in his head. Montoya sighs. Can't even protect Maroni from her own people. Nightwing looks at her. "Don't worry, I'll take him and keep him safe." Montoya asks him if he's sure, and Batgirl tells her, "Yep. Are you gonna be okay?" Montoya tells her that she'll be fine. They want Maroni, not her. They'll meet on Monday. So Nightwing grabs Maroni, throwing him on the back of a bike, and begins to make off as Maroni is pleading to not be driven off on a motorcycle. He takes a shortcut, driving off the highway and into the woods that separates Gotham from Bludhaven, passing Maroni off to Batgirl while he handles anyone that is following them. And right on cue, a group of men quietly make their way in search of Maroni. Too many people have walked into these woods and never walked out again, which makes it a great place to hide, and an even better place to hunt. As the men are knocked out, Nightwing hurries up to one of the 3 bunkers that Batman has left in these woods, just in case he ever wants to brood remotely, which makes for a good place to stash a wanted criminal. After arguing for a little bit, Batgirl and Nightwing stick him with a tranquilizer, putting him to sleep. Batgirl explains that the Titans have agreed to look over Bludhaven and Haley. 3 days in an isolated bunker in the woods with just Nightwing, Batgirl, and a known criminal. This is perfect. The next morning, Nightwing goes to check on Maroni to ask how he slept. Maroni says awful. The tranquilizer only lasted 3 hours, and this place has thin ceilings. He never thought about superheroes in relationships. And Batgirl asks, "Do you not spend any time on the internet?" Nightwing says he's going to untie him, but don't try anything stupid. You're going to be stuck here for a few days, so let's not get off on the wrong foot. But before he can make his move, Batgirl says that they might have a problem. Nightwing peeks out the window and sees a taxi just sitting there, which is strange considering this bunker has no roads that even lead to it. Nightwing slowly walks up asking what's going on, and at that moment a man who looks just like him leans out. Name's Rick Grayson. "You need to get into the cab now." Nightwing stares for a moment, confused. "Rick, don't you recognize me?" But then he remembers that he was Rick Grayson when he lost his memory, so whoever this Rick Grayson is, he might not have the memories of being Nightwing. You see, in what feels like a lifetime ago, Nightwing was shot in the head, and this caused a massive memory loss. He decided to rebuild his life in Bludhaven as this character, Rick Grayson, becoming a cab driver. But that's long in his past now, and if he's here as Nightwing, then who is Rick Grayson? Nightwing gets into the cab, confused what's going on. He tells Rick that he can't go around looking like that. And this Rick person tells him, "Right, anonymity, 1 sec." With a puff of smoke, Rick turns into a younger Nightwing. Back to the era when Nightwing had his mullet and ponytail, and he asks him if this is any better. Nightwing sighs. "No. Wait, what are you?" With another puff of smoke, this time the figure turns into a small mini Nightwing. "My name is Nightmite." Nightwing sighs. "Oh, great, you're a 5th-dimensional imp, like Batmite and Mr. Mixelpidalic." Nightmite flies up. "Oh, you're so clever and charismatic and pretty. I can't believe that I'm meeting Nightwing in the flesh. Hopefully, I'm not interrupting this impromptu date weekend with a tied-up mob boss." Actually, I'm on an impromptu date week with... Batgirl then walks up. "You have an imp!" And Nightwing groans. "Please don't find this entertaining." And Batgirl smiles. "Too late." Nightmite flies at the Batgirl. "Wow, Batgirl! I'd actually ship Nightwing with Starfire, but whatever makes him happy." Batgirl just looks at him. "Excuse me? Speaking of which, will you, won't you? What's going on?" And while we've clearly settled on yes you will, how about we get things started? With another puff of smoke, Nightwing and Batgirl are holding hands in a wedding attire, while other heroes are looking on. Batgirl screams out no. And Nightmite is confused, and Nightwing says not yet, and Batgirl says not yet? Nightmite tells them both, "Come on, what's wrong with happiness and commitment?" We don't want to be like that guy, right? Denying yourself love, happiness, carbs. Nightmite snaps his fingers, sending everyone away. But are we absolutely sure you don't want to see the dog? Haley then sits there with 2 rings. Batgirl says that Bitewing, as the ring bearer, is undeniably adorable, but they're sure. Nightmite snaps his finger, sending Batgirl inside, telling her fine. She can go back to guarding the mobster. We're running out of time anyway! In a flash, Nightwing is brought back to Bludhaven, as he asks why they're there. Nightmite tells him that Blockbuster may be gone, but he left trouble behind. Years ago, Blockbuster made a deal with the devil Neron, which, if he had greater intellect before he asked for it, you'd think he'd have the imagination to ask for a bit more. The upshot is, he sold his soul. At some stage, years later, he was able to renegotiate, and instead of selling his soul, he sold his firstborn's soul instead. Her name is Olivia, and she's also one of Nightwing's biggest fans. Not as big as me, of course, but I'd invite her into my fan club. We even got shirts, see? It's Nightwing slapping Batman instead of that other guy. Anyway, with Blockbuster gone, Neron is coming to collect. He's sending a horde of demons from hell. Nightwing asks Nightmite, if you can alter reality, why can't you fix this? Because I'm not a hero like you, and I can't be involved directly. Neron is pretty serious when it comes to souls. I could be risking an all-out war between the underworld and the 5th dimensional imps. But you can. I'm just gonna give your weapons a bit of a boost. Don't worry, it won't kill the demons. You'll be sending them back to the underworld. And when the time comes, all you need to do is speak this phrase of power on your Eskrima sticks. Nightmite whispers the phrase and Nightwing tells him, you've gotta be kidding. Can't you make it something else? Nope, can't change it now. The demons are coming, it's time. Nightwing looks at Nightmite. Am I doing this alone? You're not gonna be alone. You'll have Bitewing! Suddenly, Haley the puppy appears in a puff of smoke in her own costume, stating, Hunt now. Wait, she can talk now? Can talk. Thank you. Feed me. Save me. Nightwing pets her, telling her thank you. She's a very good dog. But as Nightmite is done fanboying over the site, Nightwing and Bitewing sneak into Blockbuster's former building when they suddenly hear the cries of the little girl. Nightwing rushes in, kicking the door open, telling the demons to get ready. The demons begin to fight back immediately, and Nightwing asks them to please don't make him say it. They are confused, asking what is he even talking about, so he holds his Eskrima sticks close and whispers, Nightwing is awesome. Suddenly the sticks glow with power, and Nightwing leaps into action. Within seconds, all 4 demons are sent back to hell. The remaining one grabs a hold of Olivia, telling him to stop or he'll break the little girl before turning her over to Neron. Nightwing tells her not to worry. I'm not gonna let the demon take you away. Everything's going to be okay. Olivia clenches her fist. I am gonna be okay. And she punches the demon out of the building. Girl strong, Bitewing says, as Nightwing says that her father was too. Later, after making a call, Nightwing meets with Raven, who tells him of course she'll watch over Olivia. She can hide Olivia from Neron's gaze. Nightmite suddenly appears. Neron can't see? Raven just laughs. Ha! You have an imp! Oh, don't even start, Raven. Nightwing tries to tell her. Before leaving, Olivia tells Nightwing and Haley thank you, but Nightwing says actually, she should be thanking Nightmite. He's the hero here. I didn't do anything! But Olivia runs over hugging him. Thank you. And Nightmite hugs her back. It was my pleasure. As Raven disappears, Nightmite says, that was a night? You know, you're not like the other 5th dimensional imps that I've met. Thanks. I could see how annoying Batmite and Mixie can be. I didn't want to be that guy. I've been watching over you for years and learned a thing or two. What's your name then? And Nightmite is curious. Why would you want that? Nightwing tells him because Nightwing shouldn't be his whole identity. If he has impossible expectations of him, then at some point he's going to let him down. It's okay to be a fan, but he shouldn't put him on a pedestal. So how about I go first? Hi, I'm Dick Grayson. Nightmite takes the mask off. My name's Dixel. This is the greatest moment of my life. So this is gonna be a bit of an awkward transition. Speaking of deals with the devil, this city will need a new Blockbuster. And it could very well be you, without the criminal empire, violence, corruption, and constant murder. Nightwing laughs. Thanks for clarifying. There's a hole in the city. There's a hole in this whole world, and honestly, you might be able to fill it. You know why? Why? Because Nightwing is awesome! The demon horde bows before their master, but Neron doesn't seem pleased. Tell me, he commands. The demons bow lower, explaining how they were defeated by the hero known as Nightwing and his super-powered dog. That they failed to acquire the soul of a 9-year-old girl, the daughter of Blockbuster. Neron cocks an eyebrow at them. A puppy? He questions, turning away, knowing that Nightwing has no powers. But he surrounds himself with powerful friends, including the daughter of Trigon, one of the most powerful demons in hell. I don't want to annoy Raven's father. We need earthly agents to recover the soul that is mine, Neron says. A short time later, he appears in the kingdom of Latvia, where the grinning man has taken the form of their king. What can I do for you? The grinning man asks. And after Neron declines to see the bodies the new king has hidden away in his chambers, Neron offers the grinning man more time on Earth before his soul is condemned to Earth. All he needs to do is retrieve a girl and murder her. She is the daughter of Blockbuster. Her name is Olivia Desmond. Elsewhere, Olivia is racing through the woods, chased by a powerful sorceress who threatens to defeat her. There's nowhere left to run, the sorceress says as she corners Olivia. But Olivia is not alone, proclaiming that the kingdom is protected by her as she draws a magical sword. The Knight of the Realm and her mighty steed, she calls out as Garth appears at her back in the form of a green unicorn. Freaking nay, foul sorceress, he shouts. And Raven stares at her boyfriend. Excuse me, foul sorceress? Garth immediately begins to backpedal on his comment, explaining that he just got swept up in the game. Luckily, he is saved by the arrival of Nightwing and Bitewing, the puppy that Nightwing took in a while ago, and the dog rushes to see Olivia. Aw, she doesn't talk anymore? Olivia says as she hugs and pets the dog, and Nightwing smiles. No, I'm pretty sure that was a one-time thing. While Garth tries to figure out how the dog talked at all, Nightwing turns to Raven and questions her about the secluded house's defenses. The three heroes then head to the house while Olivia continues to play in the yard. Nightwing informing his friends that a body was recently discovered beneath the ruins of the Titans Tower, and that the Titans are headed there to learn which of their students didn't make it out in time during Deathstroke's attack on Titans Academy. Go, I'll look after Olivia, Garth tells his friends. So a short time later, the heroes all gather in New York, where the ruins of Titans Tower lay. Starfire, who was the headmistress of the academy, learns where the body is located beneath the rubble. The rest of the heroes push the police and construction workers back as she burrows beneath the rubble, lifting the building off of the body. She's desperate to learn which of her students they had left behind. Nightwing leaps down into the darkness with Raven, where they discover the body. Who is it? Do you recognize them? Starfire calls out, still worried that she failed her students. But Nightwing and Raven are shocked to discover the body of the King of Latvia. Okay, this makes no sense, Nightwing whispers. The heroes quickly remove the body so that Starfire can return the rebel to where it lay. A short time later, Amanda Waller arrives, angry with the heroes for disturbing the crime scene. Yeah, it was either that or drop 20 tons of building back onto him, Nightwing explains, telling her that he thoroughly investigated the area and photographed the scene before they moved in on the body. I'll be happy to share all of my findings with whomever you need me to talk to, Waller. But she shakes her head, explaining that a special investigator has been sent from the Latvia embassy to deal with the matter. A short time later, Nightwing stands in the morgue with the investigator, and the body seems strange to him, as he explains that there are no dusts or debris on it, meaning that it had been placed there after the building had fallen. The investigator also explains that the king had been seen in Latvia 2 days ago. Yeah, there's more to this, because the victim has been dead for weeks, Nightwing says quietly. And then he looks at the investigator, who can't seem to stop grinning. Why are you smiling? He asks, as she shakes her head, turning away. I'm sorry. I know it's a bit inappropriate, but I like a good mystery, she says, with Nightwing apologizing for the country's loss, asking the woman if she'd ever met the king. But that's when he's struck from behind and slams into the ground. I wouldn't say I knew the king, the grinning man says as his image shifts and he takes on the appearance of Nightwing. But I did meet him once, he says, looking down on the hero and continuing to grin. Later, one of the morgue cabinets is banging until it's finally popped open with Nightwing's Eskrima sticks. Oracle! He gasps as he finally frees himself. Over at their apartment, Barbara is cuddling with Haley in bed, the dog snuggling against her as she reaches for the comms, shocked to hear Dick's voice as he asks where is Starfire and Raven. They're headed to Beast Boy's house. You're not with them? There's no way Raven and Starfire would have just left me. Something's wrong. I need Cyborg now, Dick tells her. Moments later, Oracle is relaying the message to Vic, and he boom tubes to the morgue. What's happening? I'm not sure, but I have a suspicion, and I think Olivia is in danger. As soon as we get there, find Raven, Beast Boy, and Starfire. I'll go after Olivia. Nightwing tells Vic as they boom tube to the house. Inside of Garth's house, Nightwing wakes Olivia, telling her that she is in danger, that they need to go. The sleepy girl takes the hero's hand as he leads her outside, but she's shocked to find Gar knocked out on the stairs. He'll be okay. They're after you, not him, Nightwing says as he takes her hand again, leading her into the woods. They duck under cover as Cyborg flies overhead. Isn't Cyborg one of your friends? Olivia asks, and Nightwing nods as they continue forward. Yes, but the person who's after you is a shapeshifter. He can be anyone, Nightwing tells her. That's the moment that a second Nightwing steps out of the trees, blocking their path. Yeah, that's what I thought, Nightwing says, raising his sticks. Olivia, stay behind me. This man's an imposter, the first Nightwing says, but the second Nightwing cocks an eyebrow at him. Am I? Name my dog. The first Nightwing doesn't answer, but the grin never leaves his face as he rushes to the real Nightwing, who easily blocks the attack and hits him with stun pellets and a zap to the face. That the best you got? The grinning man asks, but Nightwing then looks at Olivia. Olivia, I promise, he's not me. I swear on Bitewing, he tells her. Olivia doesn't hesitate, punching the grinning man in the back, knocking him through the air, sending him through several trees. The powered assassin gets up on his feet. All right, seems like I was missing some information about you, girl. He rushes forward, grabbing her arm, leaping up and flying away into the air, but they're suddenly stopped by Raven, Starfire, and Cyborg. Everyone's staring at each other for a moment. I fly now, the grinning man says, still in the disguise of Nightwing. The heroes stare at him and sigh. Fine, clearly time to abort this mission, the grinning man says before tossing Olivia away, but none of the heroes move. Aren't you gonna, catch her? The grinning man asks. Was hurling a little girl through the sky your entire escape plan? Cyborg asks. Meanwhile, a short distance away, Donna Troy is flying through the air with Olivia in her arms. The heroes hit the grinning man with a burst of energy, throwing him into the ground. With his disguise now fully gone, the assassin gets back to his feet, but the Flash is suddenly there. You tried to run? Yeah, you don't get to run from this, Wally says as he punches the man in the face, knocking him out. It's later that the grinning man is now tied to a chair, where the Titans begin to question about how he got his powers and why he was after Olivia. He explains that he was once a really bad criminal who liked disguises, but he was approached by Neron, one of the lords of hell. Neron offered him powers for his soul, and the grinning man wanted to be powerful, able to fly, and a true master of disguise. And I wanted something to put a smile on my face, the grinning man says, but Neron was true to his word. The grinning man no longer had any features of his own except for the grin that never leaves his face. The heroes are shocked that Neron is even involved, and they move into another room of the house to discuss the matter. Why is Blockbuster's daughter so important? Cyborg questions, but Raven explains that Neron merely doesn't want to be seen as weak, that Olivia is merely the soul that is owed. I don't understand how an agreement with a father can be used against the daughter. I want to see that contract, Nightwing says. So Raven agrees, suggesting that they all break into hell. Excuse me? Garth gasps in disbelief, and Raven tells them that they can break into Neron's fortress to see the contract, while Donna and Starfire take Olivia to Themyscira for safety. Nightwing nods, looking at his friends. Then it's settled. The Titans are gonna steal from hell. Later, a portal opens up and the four heroes step into the abysmal landscape of hell. Welcome to hell, Raven tells her friends. And as the heroes press forward to Neron's fortress, Raven casts a spell that shields their eyes from the horrors around them. The place is full of suffering and you're all heroes. You'll want to help. You can't help anyone, she tells them as they move. Above, Donna, Starfire, and Batgirl arrive on the island of the Amazons with Olivia. But the little girl is pouting, believing that she doesn't need all of them to protect her. Okay, well, we're not here for your protection, Batgirl tells her, and Donna nods, stepping forward. Nightwing tells me you're very strong. You want to learn how to fight? Donna asks, and Olivia jumps up and down cheering. Oh my god, yes please, she shouts. Meanwhile, down in hell, the heroes have arrived at Neron's fortress, led by Blaze, a demon who seeks Neron's throne and agrees to help the Titans. Nightwing decides that their best course of action is to sneak in. The four heroes quickly make their way to the top of the tower, where Cyborg finds all of his files are in computers from the early 90s. My god, this is hell, he whispers, but Vic manages to cut through the clutter and malware until he finally finds a folder on Olivia's soul. They move through the archives and find the glowing scroll, where they learn that Olivia's mother was Jezebel Jet. You know the name? Vic asks, and Nightwing nods, explaining that Jet was once one of the lovers of Batman. She was also murdered by Talia al Ghul. So that's it? Valid contract? Garth asks, but Nightwing shakes his head. No, I think I can get around it. We need bureaucracy, and I need to talk to my sister, Melinda. I think we can save Olivia's soul with the local government. Meanwhile, over at Iron Heights prison, the grinning man is sitting quietly in his cell, but Neron appears before him. You dialed? Do the Titans know of my involvement? The grinning man explains that he told them everything. Neron knows that he can't attack Themyscira outright, but he can send the grinning man and other villains whose souls he's trapped. So over on the island of the Amazons, the heroes are training Olivia to use her strength, but they're interrupted by Wonder Woman, who offers to spar with the young girl. Olivia, let's see what you can do, she says with a wide grin. At the other heroes' urging, Olivia launches herself forward, punching Wonder Woman. But Diana catches the blow in her fist and leans in with a wide grin. I wasn't ready for you last time. You got a cheap shot in, Wonder Woman whispers, and she pulls the girl forward, kicking her hard, sending her bouncing across the fields. The other heroes all rush forward, but suddenly fall to the ground, clutching their heads. Psychic attack! Batgirl calls out. Wonder Woman's image begins to shift as the grinning man reveals himself, motioning over his shoulder as the ground shakes beneath them, and Dr. Polaris and Gorilla Grodd reveal themselves. Meanwhile, over at the Bludhaven Town Hall, Nightwing is finishing up the paperwork when they get the alert about the attack on Themyscira. He tells his friends to go, he'll finish it up. Raven opens up a portal, and they all leave. Nightwing looks up as Neron appears in the shadowy couch across the room. I thought Raven would never leave. He stands walking over to Nightwing. Doing some superheroic paperwork. Nightwing smiles, standing, offering the paperwork to Neron, explaining that the contract for Olivia's soul is now invalid since it hasn't been signed by her legal guardian, which is now Nightwing. The Demon Lord sighs. Nightwing, if you let this go, we can come to an arrangement. He offers Nightwing anything that he wants, knowing that he desires the power to save humanity. So he waves his hand at the hero. Let me give you a taste of what I can give you, the power to change the world. In a flash of light, Nightwing is given superpowers as he floats into the air, feeling his new strength and abilities that flow through his body. Floating in the air, he looks down at his body. What have you done, Neron? He demands, but Neron merely explains that he has given Nightwing the power to change the world for 2 hours. You're a bright boy, you can do anything. I would remind you that your friends are under attack in Themyscira. Nightwing doesn't hesitate, flying away, crossing the world in a matter of moments. He arrives at the island, grabbing Gorilla Grodd, flying him to a deserted island so that his friends can continue the fight without the psychic attack. By the time he's returned, the rest of the Titans have beaten Dr. Polaris and the Grinning Man, and everyone looks up to Nightwing in surprise. I fly now, he tells them with a smile, explaining to them the deal that Neron offered and that he has 2 hours with the powers. 2 hours? What are you gonna do? Garth asks him. With that, Nightwing heads out. He travels to see his friend the Flash and is finally able to keep up with his super speed. Any immovable objects you could use an unstoppable force for? Nightwing asks. Wally smiles, leading his friend to Bangkok, where they dismantle an illegal water capture and provide water to the thousands downstream. Next, Nightwing heads to Metropolis, where he flies up to meet Superman, offering his hand. Nightwing quickly explains his powers. I just wanted to say thank you and shake your hand. Superman proudly takes at shaking it. Good grip, he says with a smile, leading Nightwing into space so that the young hero can look down on the planet and see everything that they are protecting. Good to have this perspective, Nightwing admits, as Superman explains to him that the world is worth protecting against the threats from outside and in. That not everyone on the planet will always like everything that he does. I don't know, I'm pretty likable, Nightwing reminds him. But their talk is interrupted by Oracle, who warns him of another attack at Themyscira. Nightwing arrives during the battle, seeing Neron's demon horde attacking. He leaps in to beat a few demons and quickly grabs Olivia, flying her away to safety. In moments, they're flying over the mountains. But that's when Neron's voice calls out to him. That's far enough, hero! He snaps his fingers, instantly taking away Nightwing's power. Nightwing cradles Olivia in his body as they both fall out of the sky, landing hard in the snow. Looking up, Nightwing sees the Demon Lord standing over them, a glowing contract in his hand. That power can return. I will give it back. You have my word. Just give me the girl, Neron says, reminding Dick that it isn't even his soul that Neron is asking him to give up. but Nightwing refuses. Neron sighs in irritation. Do you not have a pragmatic bone in your whole body? With the power that I'm offering you, you can make the lives of billions better. Nightwing shakes his head, drawing his Eskrima sticks. I say, Nightwing is awesome. He says activating the last of the magic powers that Nightmite left in the weapons. Go to hell, Neron. Nightwing says as he strikes the Demon Lord with the weapons, turning him into a massive tentacle beast that can barely move. Neron bellows in anger, disappearing, returning to the bowels of hell. Olivia rushes over to Nightwing, shocked that he would give up that power for her. It's okay. We'll look after the world just fine, he tells her. Later, the Titans stand on the beach of Themyscira, where Diana offers Olivia a home on the island where she can be trained by Amazons. She accepts the offer, and Nightwing gives her a plaque, telling her that she is now an honorary Titan. Until the day you can step up and join us, of course, Garth reminds her. Olivia accepts with a smile, telling them that her superhero name will be Nightbuster, because she knows that combining Nightwing's name with Blockbuster would really piss her dad off. So the Titans all wave goodbye as Donna leads Olivia to her new home and family. Thank you for saving me. Thank you. Olivia calls out to her friends. An hour later, Neron is hiding in his fortress, trying to pull his humanoid form back together, but he's interrupted as Raven stalks into his chambers. Nightwing beat you, she points out, and Neron shakes his head, telling her that it was merely one fight and he will win the war. Raven refuses to allow Olivia to live her life with the threat of a demon lord hanging over her head. She raises her hands, her dark magic swirling around her. I don't want hell, but I'm taking it away from you, she says as the magical energy expands and explodes through the fortress. As the smoke clears, Neron is collapsed to the ground. He's yours, Blaze, Raven calls over her shoulder. The female demon that helped from earlier steps into the throne world. And the underworld is yours until the next challenger, Raven says as she turns to leave. But Blaze stops her, pointing out that there is something wrong with Raven. I can feel it. I'm not sure what it is, but part of you is missing. Raven pauses for a moment, but she doesn't answer, stalking out of hell to return to the mortal world. It all began a few years ago, and quite literally a different life. Nightwing was a different man with a different name, and one of those nights he was followed by an unfamiliar face. Once isolated, Rick Grayson confronted that man. The man told Rick that he used to be in the circus with Rick long ago, but he saw the news that he was shot in the head. The man pulled out a package telling him that he wanted to give it to him, that he was terrified. But he ended up in jail, and now that he's out, he wants to complete his delivery. He wants Rick Grayson to have it. Rick debated opening. It was addressed to Dick Grayson, not him. Dick Grayson was the man before he was shot in the head. Dick Grayson was the man before he had amnesia. Rick Grayson is someone totally new. But after talking to Bay, he said that he needed to keep it somewhere safe. Somewhere that it could be kept until Dick Grayson returned, because it seems rather important. Bay told him that it was going to sound strange, but she does know of somewhere that he could store it. So it's a few nights later that the quartermaster arrives, a man in a nautical garb, wearing a raincoat and a captain's hat. Rick Grayson looks at the quartermaster and says that he's looked it over and it needs to be protected. Can the quartermaster do it? The quartermaster told him that it will be secure. The hold doesn't let go. He takes out his book and begins to submit the package, stating that his locker will be 538. Can you remember that? No, probably not. My memory isn't the greatest right now, but it doesn't matter. This isn't for me, it's for in case someone comes back. The quartermaster asks Rick what name he should put it under, and he tells him, Nightwing. We now go to the current age. Nightwing is aware of the hold. He has just taken care of Blockbuster, he has restarted the Titans, and he has an offer to command the Justice League. And all of this kind of got in the way of him figuring out what was in that package. He has met with the quartermaster, and he's aware that there is something there for him. That there's a package with some potential secrets waiting for him. However, someone else decided that it was time to make a withdrawal. As the Master-at-Arms stands before the entrance, a man walks up and he asks, Can I help you? Heartless tells him that he's come to pick up a few things, and the Master-at-Arms tells him, I don't believe you have a booking here. Heartless rushes forward, grabbing the master at arms, but before he can do anything, the quartermaster sets out telling him that he would appreciate it if they put the man down. And he's right. You don't have an appointment. Heartless asks if he knows of him, and the quartermaster says, "We are the crew of the Crossed Keys. We pay attention when a brutal idiot walks our streets." After tossing the master at arms aside, Heartless charges at the quartermaster, but the quartermaster thrusts his sword. "You're a spoiled young man. The hold doesn't let go." Heartless stops, looking down at the sword, now thrust within his chest. That's not going to work. He lifts the aged man, asking, "Would anyone miss you?" The quartermaster tells him that if he hurts him or threatens the hold, my daughter will hunt you down. Heartless uses his heart-extracting gun on the quartermaster. That's perfect. After the event is over, Heartless throws the lifeless body aside, calling out to Zuko. "You can come out now. The old bastard stabbed me, so it better be worth it." Zuko walks down the stairs of the hold. "Oh, it'll be worth it. This is beyond anything you've seen before. We're talking generations of wealth in one." But he stops and he peers over the hold. It's gone. The hold is gone. It's nothing but a giant hole. 1 hour passes and Nightwing and Commissioner Sawyer arrive, and she asks if he can identify the victims. Nightwing says that he doesn't know of the larger one, but the sailor was known as the Quartermaster. Sawyer sighs. The department has been hunting Heartless for weeks now. They have nothing but a trail of bodies. And Nightwing watches the medics, telling them, "Me and my friends have been searching too. He hasn't left a trace. This is the first sign of him since the prison break." But while they talk, Barbara radios in that they may have a bit of an issue. The paramedics who took the bodies, the facial recognition on his mask's camera came up blank. They're not paramedics. They're someone else taking the quartermaster and the master at arms bodies. Nightwing steps away, telling her that means that they're not in Bludhaven's medical system. He hops on his bike and he follows the ambulance, which seems strange that an ambulance carrying the dead bodies is driving through the city with their sirens on. Nightwing speeds up, tapping on the passenger side window, asking if they can talk for a moment. The driver looks over, and then he swerves into Nightwing, causing him to almost hit a car. Barbara tells him that that is the exact opposite of what an ambulance should be doing. "How about I take control of the bike while you explain that to them, Nightwing?" He laughs, standing up on the bike. She drives him close enough for him to jump onto the back, and once inside, he tells the men that body snatching doesn't make a good impression. But I'm willing to talk about it, guys." The men jump out of their seats attacking, and Barbara says that she appreciates him trying a bit of diplomacy first. He knocks out both men and then asks, "Hey, you don't suppose that your ambulance is also a hovercraft, do you?" "Why?" And she tells him that his GPS is claiming that he is in the harbor. He steps out of the ambulance and sees that he is now stowed on a bow. Dozens of men surrounding him, telling him not to move. With everyone armed to the teeth, pointing their guns at him, a voice in the back tells them to lower their arms. One of the men looks back. "Aye, Captain Blood." Nightwing looks. Captain Blood. And his old girlfriend from when he was Rick Grayson, Bay, steps out of the crowd. "Hello, Nightwing." Nightwing is shocked. He's been brought to the ship of Captain Blood, who he now realizes is his former girlfriend, Beatrice Bennett, the woman that he dated while he had a minor case of amnesia and went by the name of Rick Grayson. The two stare at each other for a moment, Beatrice's men gathering around them, and finally Beatrice looks at her second in command. "Take him to the brig. Bring him to me in an hour." Dick watches as Beatrice steps into the ambulance that he was captured in. She leans over the body of her dead father. "I'm so sorry," she says, tears forming in her eyes, but before he can say anything, Dick is ushered below deck. He's led into a cell, but instead of shutting the door, the pirates follow him in. "The death of Captain Blood is on you, hero," the first mate growls, and Nightwing is surprised. "What? Captain Blood isn't dead?" he points out, but they shake their heads. "The last Captain Blood." A pirate approaches Nightwing, but he ducks under their attacks, lashing out at them, but there are too many and the cell is too tight for him to move properly. They're going to bring him down quickly if he doesn't do something. So he pulls out his escrima sticks, rushing towards the first mate, but Beatrice's voice brings them all to a stop. "What the hell is this?" she demands. Nightwing looks to the side, his hand already at the first mate's throat. "Let go of each other now," she orders. Without question, the first mate releases Dick Grayson. "You're angry, Lucas. And you're looking for somewhere to put that, but you're fighting a damn superhero. You need to be smarter. You're no use to your captain or your ship if you're broken, Beatrice says. Lucas nods, lowering his gaze. And with a sigh, Beatrice heads towards the deck, motioning for Nightwing to follow her. In the prow of the ship, she turns to her ex, asking if he's finally curious about her past. And he smiles, revealing that he's already figured it out. Beatrice is the leader of the secret pirate society that uses Bludhaven as a port, which would explain how she was so well at fighting off Joker's goons during Joker War. He's also realized that Bludhaven got its name for being a port of haven for Captain Blood long ago. He finally looks at her. "Where's the hold?" he asks, knowing that this is where Blood hid the mysterious package that was being held for Dick Grayson. "We moved it after Zuko broke in. You want your box?" she asks, offering to give it to Dick if he does something for her. The hold does not let go. "You must pay what you owe, that's how the hold works," Beatrice explains, explaining that after Zuko attempted to steal from the hold, her father allowed Nightwing to take him back to the city to serve justice, but Zuko escaped and led Heartless back to the hold, killing her father, the previous Captain Blood. "Now my father is dead and you have to make this right," she says, explaining that she was adopted into the Blood family, and there are some people who believe that her being captain is illegitimate. "My father had a son that was disowned long ago." She continues, explaining that some believe that Dirk Blood should be the captain. "The crew of the Crossed Keys would become something nastier if he was in charge. I have worked hard to make this a force for good. Dirk needs to be removed. He's very well hidden and very well protected. I know you have skills my crew does not possess. You can get him." Nightwing looks at her for a moment. "B, I'm not killing anyone." She shakes her head, explaining that they can capture Dirk. They can bring him to one of the numerous countries that he's wanted in. The crew won't follow a man behind bars, and he belongs there. Trust me. She leads Nightwing below deck, offering him a cabin on the pirate ship, motioning to several of the trunks in the room, asking if he wants to change into something that fits. Once alone, Dick puts out a call to his girlfriend Barbara, asking her to look up everything on Dirk Blood. "Already searching," she reports since she was listening in. As Dick begins to change, Barbara comes back on the line. "B is secretly a pirate queen, a dark twist to a past relationship. You're becoming more like Batman every day," Barbara jokes, and Dick snorts at the remark. "Right?" He sighs as he pulls on a shirt. Barbara taps at her computer, confirming that Dirk Blood is a terrible person. "So I guess you're going on a cruise with your ex," Barbara sighs. She looks back at the camera in Dick's eye, and her eyes go wide as she sees Nightwing looking at himself in the mirror. "You're wearing that?" Dick raises an eyebrow. "What do you think?" I think you should wear it home. You're really swashing that buckle, Nightwing," she says at his new pirate outfit. A short time later, Nightwing heads back on deck. Beatrice has her back to him as he agrees to join and help her. "What are you wearing?" she asks as she turns around to see Dick's new pirate getup, and he shrugs. "This is the only thing that fit from the chest." "The chest? Do you not see the cupboard?" she asks, pointing out that it had jeans and sneakers, clothing that normal people would wear. "I did not," Dick tells her, offering to go change, but she shrugs, turning away with a shake of her head. "For the duration of the mission, you will look like the cover of a romance novel. Captain's orders." Lightning cracks overhead as someone shouts for a sailor overboard. Nightwing rushes to the railing, prepared to jump in after Lucas, but he is suddenly frozen in fear that hasn't gripped him since he was a young man. Beatrice rushes past him, grabbing a rope and leaping in after her first mate. Moments pass, but the two of them break the surface, and the crew then pulls them back on board. Once they're safe on the deck, Beatrice crouches by her first mate. "Lucas, what happened?" And Lucas shakes his head, explaining that someone pushed him overboard. So a short time later, Nightwing and Beatrice are below deck. "You have a traitor on board," Dick tells her, and she nods as she towels off. "Yeah, someone on board is acting for my brother. Dirk probably wants me dead," she says with a sigh, explaining that they need to go to the pirate stronghold, that no one can know of the journey or its destination. "Are you the only one looking through your mask?" Beatrice asks him, and Nightwing pauses for a moment. "No," he finally admits, so she asks for it, telling him that she needs to keep the stronghold's location a secret. "Nightwing, I want you home," Barbara tells him over the comms, but Dick tells her that this is something he needs to do. He pulls off the mask, looking through it, promising that he will return home to Barbara safe. I love you, he tells her, putting away her only connection to him on this journey. Now with a new mask, he and Beatrice head back to the deck, where they throw his old one into the ocean, sailing away from the harbor of Bludhaven. The pirate ship slides across the ocean in the dead of night, the full moon watching over it. Inside, the traitorous assassin slips into the captain's quarters, driving a knife into her sleeping form. Wow, you must really hate that bed, Nightwing notes from the doorway, where he leans casually. The assassin pulls out the knife, revealing that he merely stabbed a bundle of blankets, and Nightwing smiles, explaining that they decided that it would be silly for the captain to sleep in her own room with a murderous traitor on board. I think we made the right call, Nightwing notes, as the assassin lunges at him with the knife. Nightwing steps to the side, the assassin running through the ship, and Dick smiles, giving chase. We're on a boat! Is your escape plan to do laps and hope I get tired? He points out that he gets a lot of cardio for being a superhero before tackling the assassin. A short time later, the man is tied up in the stronghold. B, the pirate queen, leans in close. My brother sent you, she snaps, but the man shakes his head. He did, but he didn't have to. You're not a blood. You're not our captain, the assassin says, and with a sigh of exasperation, she heads towards the door, ordering her first mate, Lucas, to get what information he can from the traitor. Dick follows after her, asking how long until they reach the pirate stronghold. We'll be there by morning, B informs him. And finally, Dick asks the question that has been going through his mind. B, why are you helping me? Given that you've been a secret power behind Bludhaven this whole time? He asks, and she nods, explaining that she has been greasing the wheels so that all the charity work and social work that Dick Grayson has been doing in Bludhaven would actually go through. All heaven would have been doomed for years of bureaucratic inaction. She tells him, and Dick thanks her, but she gets angry, pointing out that they hadn't spoken since he broke up with her, when he left her for his noble ideals, angrily pointing out that he doesn't feel the need to protect Batgirl, who she has seen him with. I'm constantly worried about her safety, but she's a superhero, and I'm a pirate queen, B snaps at him, but the anger deflates as Dick tells her, you didn't tell me that, B! She finally turns around. We'll be arriving at dawn. You should get some sleep. Once dawn arrives, the ship arrives. Dick is shocked as they sail through a holographic wall into a pirate cove. This is impossible, Dick says with a gasp, looking at the skyscrapers of a pirate city. B joins him at the rail and smiles. No, Nightwing, there are places in this world that remain hidden, even to you and your friends. B steps off the boat and is greeted by the captain's concierge, Lindsay, who bows despite B's repeated request that she doesn't. It is tradition, Lindsay informs her with determination, and Dick raises an eyebrow. And this tradition has more power than the actual commands of your captain? He asks, but Lindsay looks at him with disdain. Traditionally, a captain's consort doesn't speak, she snaps at him. Dick is flabbergasted, but it is explained to him by the first mate that the fewer questions will be asked if everyone thinks that he is just B's consort. As Lindsay leads him through the city, Dick is shocked by how clean and normal the city is, pointing out that they even have an international coffee franchise. Were you expecting filthy market stalls full of spices, skulls, and three-headed monkeys? The first mate asks with a smile, and Dick smiles, but points out that a lot of eyes are following them through the city. The captain is adored. She is always watched, Lucas says as he waves Nightwing off. They finally arrive at the captain's home, the seat of power in the city, but when Lucas goes to open the door, a shotgun blast hits him in the chest. B is shocked, rushing to her friend's side, then looks up in anger at her brother, who stands there with a smoking gun. What have you done, brother? She demands, but the man shakes his head. You're not my sister. You're a chunk of driftwood that my father fished out of the sea and carved into a shape he liked, Dirk says. B gets to her feet, shocked that Dirk would sink this low, but he smiles, leaning in. Who do you think told Zuko about the diamond in the hold in the first place? I told several ruthless, greedy thugs, knowing at least one of them would deal with Dad. Job done, he whispers to her. But Dirk knows that he has no power without the hold and demands to know where it is. But Nightwing is done being quiet. He pulls out his escrima sticks, throwing down some smoke pellets and rushing forward as the smoke swirls around them, punching Dirk in the face, knocking him down. Lindsay draws a pistol, but B pulls out a sword, cutting through the weapon with one blow. She throws the woman out, whirling around, and Nightwing continues to fight the pirates as B rushes after her retreating brother. Dirk! She bellows as she rounds a corner, but she is shocked as her brother's blade pierces her stomach. Yes? you called? He asks with a smile, her eyes widening as the pain begins to course through her body. I will never tell you where the hold is, she gasps, and he merely smiles, telling her that he will torture everyone on the ship until they give up the location of the hold. I will get what I need from them, he says, twisting her around. Far below them, the waves crashing against the docks. Nightwing rushes out of the tower, shouting for Dirk to stop. No, I have longed for what is mine, he says as he kicks out, knocking Bee through the rail, sending her plummeting to the waters below. Beatrice hits the water with a splash, disappearing below its depths. Back on the tower, Dirk wipes the blood from his blade, looking back at Nightwing. You seem pretty useful. You want a job, consort? But Dick moves past him, leaping up onto the railing and looking down at the waters below, raising an eyebrow. You're gonna kill yourself for her? Seems a little over the top, Dirk tells him. But Nightwing leaps, plummeting into the waters below. It was Alfred that taught him how to take care of people when they are hurt, more so than Batman ever did. Dick uses those skills now. Beatrice comes awake with Dick standing over her, having saved her and patched up her wounds. I'm not dead. She gasps as she attempts to sit up, but Dick shakes his head. No, you were stabbed, but he missed everything that you'd want him to miss. But don't try to move, he tells her as he sits on the bed. She shakes her head, moving to get out of bed, refusing to allow Dirk to take everything from her. In the last 48 hours, I've lost my ship, my crew, my command, my first mate, and my father. I will not lose the hold as well, she says as she stands, pulling on her shirt. She knows that if Dirk takes control of the hold, he will use the secrets within to bring down the empires of the world, and she refuses to allow him to do this. You saved my life. I release you from my debt. When I recover the hold, you will have your box. But Dick only laughs, pointing out that she can barely stand and has no crew. I'm not walking away, Bee. A short time later, Dick and Bee have stolen a seaplane and have flown to a secluded cove, the location of the hold, where the ancient sailing ship is moored. The crew of the ship stand in surprise as the plane door opens up and Bee steps out. Quartermaster, Bee says to the blonde woman in charge. The quartermaster is surprised. Captain Blood, we were told you, she says, but Bee interrupts her. There's been a mutiny, Amanda. Whose side are you on? I'm on your side. You are the captain, and Dirk is a jerk, Amanda tells her. But Bee smiles at her friend, boarding the ship, ordering them to prepare for Dirk's eventual arrival. Hours later, Dirk arrives in Bee's former ship. He stands ready on the deck of the ship. Quartermaster, defenders of the hold, your captain is here. The captain of the Crossed Keys is Beatrice Blood, Amanda calls out to him. A plank is placed between the ships, and Dirk steps out, his sword drawn. Beatrice was never a Blood, and she is dead. Now stand aside, he orders, but the pirates look up in surprise as Nightwing swings across the ships, leaping among them and kicking them away. Dirk turns in surprise. What is this? And Dick shrugs. Isn't it obvious? An ambush. He continues to fight, leaping and flipping, kicking his way across the ship and through the pirates, until finally it is only him and Dirk. The pirate clashes his sword against Dick's scrimmastics. You survived the fall, consort. And Dick snaps at him. I'm not a consort. Then why are you dressed like that? Dirk asks him. There was a chest in front of the wardrobe. Dick snaps at him, trying to defend his choice in romance novel pirate outfits. He ducks under another attack, punching Dirk hard and knocking him back, and that's when Dick reveals the truth. I wasn't just an ambush. I was also sent to distract you, while the captain freed her crew below deck. Dirk turns in surprise to see Beatrice and her crew have arrived from below deck, weapons pointed at all of the pirates loyal to Dirk. Weapons down, all of you, Beatrice orders, despite Dirk's shouts of anger, and the pirates comply. Dirk has no choice, dropping his blade to the deck. This is for Lucas, she says as she storms forward, knocking him out in one punch. And Dick looks at her. You know, he already dropped his weapon. Dick points out and Beatrice shrugs. My fist slipped, she says easily. With the task complete, Beatrice takes Dick into the hold, where he's given the mysterious box that was waiting for him. Inside of the box is a CD-ROM, and the pirates allow him to watch the footage captured on it. Dick is shocked to find that this is footage of the night that his parents were murdered. Footage that shows that Tony Zuko sabotaged his parents' trapeze. I gotta go home. I need to find Zuko, Nightwing says as he gets to his feet, and Beatrice nods to her old boyfriend. The Crossed Keys will be looking for him as well. All of our people in Bludhaven will be searching. If we find Zuko or Heartless, you will know. She does ask that if Nightwing finds Heartless before they do, then he make the criminal pay for what he did to her father. Nightwing nods as he pulls on his mask once more. I will. And he heads off on his next adventure. Our story begins in Gotham City, a man crying out into the night. In mere moments, Batman swoops down to the scene to find the man lying on the ground. A large hole is in his chest and his heart is missing. Batman leans down to examine the body, but there's a noise behind him. He whirls with a batarang at the ready, his eyes widening in shock as he sees a young boy hiding behind a nearby car. The batarang falls uselessly to the ground. A little while later, Barbara Gordon is sitting in her bed and the Oracle line beeps. Batman? I can't reach Nightwing, Batman tells her. Barbara looks at the bathroom door awkwardly. He's in the shower, she tells the Dark Knight, and there's a brief pause. He's in Gotham. Good, Batman tells her. There's a sound of combat in the background, and Barbara realizes that Batman is fighting a handful of goons. Do you need some backup? But Batman tells her that he's fine. A moment later, Dick Grayson comes out of the bedroom. I need to talk. I think Heartless has come to Gotham, Batman growls. It doesn't take Dick long to suit up and find Batman on his motorcycle. Batman is still dealing with a gun-toting ring at the docks, and Nightwing comes flipping into the fight, his motorcycle taking out several goons. In moments, the fight is over, and the duo is standing over these goons. I think your problem has moved cities, Batman tells his former sidekick, and Nightwing nods. Yeah, there's been no recent sign of Heartless in Bludhaven, and Oracle has eyes on the streets, and I've patrolled every night, he says. The two of them head out in the Batmobile and Nightwing's motorcycle, with Batman explaining that he doesn't want to scare the young boy from the scene any more than he already has. Aiko Wahid, he's with the GCPD. Commissioner Montoya and I are working together, but I still can't be a part of the interrogation. Batman explains and Nightwing nods, knowing that he could use his pull with the Titans, now the world's premier superhero team, to get in good with Montoya. He taps the button on his helmet, patching through to the new commissioner. Renee? Hey, it's Dick. You mind if I drop by? In a short time, the duo arrive at the GCPD headquarters, and Montoya agrees to let Dick speak with Aiko. I want every piece of intel you have on Heartless, though. Nightwing nods his agreement. You'll get it, Commissioner. It's not a lot, but I'll share what I have. Renee looks at Batman standing in the shadows and asks if the Dark Knight will be a part of the questioning, but Batman shakes his head. I frightened the boy enough at the scene. Nightwing is better suited for this, Batman tells her. So Renee leads Nightwing to the room where Aiko is waiting. Walking through the door, Nightwing starts to introduce himself, but Aiko whirls around from the video game he's playing. You're Nightwing! You're on my pencil case, he says as he charges across the room, hugging the hero. In the next room, Batman smiles slightly as he watches his son bond with the boy. 10 minutes later, the pair are playing a video game. How are you so good at this? Aiko says with a smile, and while they play, Nightwing begins to ask gentle questions about what Aiko saw. But all Aiko can remember is the murderer wore a big coat and a mask. I'm sorry, I want to be brave for you, Aiko tells his hero. And Nightwing smiles down at him as tears begin to form in the kid's eyes. Can I tell you a secret? It happened to me too. I lost my parents when I was about your age, Nightwing admits, explaining to Aiko that the pain will never truly go away. The pair are then interrupted as the door swings open and Montoya introduces Aiko's uncle, Locke. Aiko and his uncle look at each other awkwardly before Aiko goes to gather his things. Alone, Nightwing looks at the man. You're not close, are you? He asks Locke, and the man shakes his head. Not really. I have no idea what I'm going to do with him, Locke admits, showing that he's in over his head. Nightwing nods, explaining that Aiko will probably be scared for a little while, so Locke's going to have to be patient. You have to be everything for him, for a little while. You have to be the security that he's lost, Nightwing says. And a short time later, Batman and Nightwing are in the coroner's office, examining the body. Nightwing points out how several things don't add up to Heartless's M.O. Aiko said that the killer didn't say anything, and Heartless used to like to talk to his victims, relishing the idea of who they would be leaving behind after they were dead. The wound in the body is also jagged and clumsy, while Heartless was exact when he was killing. I don't think this is Heartless, Nightwing finally says, and Batman nods. A copycat? Or someone trying to make this look like Heartless so the police don't look anywhere else? Nightwing looks at his mentor. I think we have to talk to Aiko again. See if he can remember anything else. But Batman points out that it's 3 in the morning and Aiko had a long day, so Dick nods. You're right, they can wait till morning. Meanwhile, Locke and Aiko have arrived at their home. but Locke isn't nice anymore, ordering Aiko to move quickly. "If you need to go to the bathroom, go now. We're not staying here tonight." Locke snaps. Aiko is confused, but Locke quickly gathers up an already packed up suitcase, shouting that it's all falling apart now that Nightwing and Batman are involved. "I've worked too hard for this!" He snaps at Aiko, grabbing him by the arm, dragging him to the door. "Where are we going?" Aiko demands, and Locke glares at him. "Where you're actually useful. Now shut your mouth," he says as they head out the door, leaving the Nightwing pencil case behind. The next day, Dick gets ready to head out with Barbara walking into the room. "Where are you going?" "There's a few things I didn't check out about the murder last night. It's possible that it wasn't Heartless," Dick Grayson explains, telling her that he and Batman are going to check in on Aiko again. She nods and sips her coffee. "Okay, be careful though. I know this one will be personal for both of you," she says, knowing that Aiko's fate has echoed Bruce and Dick's. In a short amount of time, Nightwing arrives at Locke's apartment to discover the door is already open. He slips inside to find Batman waiting in the shadows. "The door was open. No one here," Batman says, and they check the place over and find evidence of suitcases being dragged across the carpet. Nightwing stops in the living room and looks down at Aiko's pencil case. Inside, he finds a folded piece of paper. "Help" is written on it. They quickly check out Locke's computer and discover that he has booked 2 seats on a flight to Vietnam 2 weeks ago. Angrily, Nightwing stands up, picking up the pencil case. "The uncle killed the father, made it look like Heartless, so that's where everyone would be looking," Nightwing growls, turning to Batman, telling him that they have to get to Vietnam quickly, but first they have to make a stop at Bludhaven. Batman and Nightwing quickly head to Titan's Tower, where Nightwing tells Cyborg that they need to borrow the T-Jet. "Sure, I'll make it ready for you," Cyborg says, and the two head out of the room with Batman moving to follow, but he's stopped by Beast Boy. "Batman, could I have a word? You're used to people hating you, right? I mean, that came out wrong," Beast Boy says. He asks how he's supposed to deal with the world hating him after what happened during the Beast World event. And Batman puts a hand on Beast Boy's shoulder. "You don't have to be liked. You do this to save people. And you didn't just help, you saved the world," Batman tells him quietly. He tells the young hero that some people will be blinded by prejudice and they will hate him, but that Beast Boy is a hero. "You saved everyone on the planet, Garfield Logan. Nothing else matters." A short time later, Batman and Nightwing are flying across the world in the T-Jet. Oracle patches through and explains that Aiko's father was the inheritor of the Orion Telecommunications Company. With him out of the way, Aiko is next in line, with Locke taking control until the boy came of age. She explains that the company has headquarters all over Vietnam, and there's no way to know where Locke could be hiding once he lands. "We don't need to know where he's going, we need to know where he's landing," Nightwing says with a smile. "The T-Jet is a lot faster than a commercial plane. We can beat him there." Later, Locke is dragging Aiko through a Vietnam airport, where they're greeted by the security team of Orion Telecommunications. "Is this all the security you brought?" Locke asks the head of the team, who assures them that they're all very good at their jobs. They continue to move through the airport, but Locke stops in surprise as Batman and Nightwing step out of the shadows. "Are you okay, Aiko?" Nightwing asks as the security team steps between the heroes and the family. "Help, please, Nightwing," Aiko whispers. Locke orders the team to attack and they rush the heroes, but Batman and Nightwing have been working and training together for years. They drop into rhythm, protecting each other's backs, hitting where the other can't. And in moments, the team is down. Locke grabs a fallen pistol, holding it to Aiko by the throat. "Don't do anything stupid! We're getting in the car!" he says as he drags Aiko towards the security vehicles. "No, you're not!" Nightwing growls, rushing forward. Fear flies through Locke and he points the pistol at Nightwing, firing the weapon. The round impacts off Nightwing's armor, but the hero keeps going. "Nightwing!" Batman shouts, knowing that Nightwing's armor isn't as strong as his, knowing that the force of the impact most likely broke Nightwing's arm. But his former sidekick doesn't care. He keeps moving, knocking the pistol out of Locke's hand, slamming him against the car. "Aiko, walk to Batman," Nightwing growls. The boy is frightened. He doesn't move, but Nightwing's face softens as he looks at Aiko. "It's okay. You're safe now. Batman will protect you. He's always protected me," Nightwing says softly, and Aiko nods, rushing to Batman's side. The Dark Knight offers a protective hand and shield with his cape. Nightwing glares at Aiko for a moment before relaxing his grip. "We're taking you back. You're going to face justice in Gotham," Nightwing says. And a short time later, the group is boarding the T-Jet. Nightwing offers Aiko his pencil box before later putting a blanket over him as he falls asleep. Batman watches from the pilot's seat, a smile on his face, proud of his son.
Thanks, Benny. I'll take it from here. Dick Grayson was 7 years old when he watched his parents soaring high over the crowd and decided that he wanted to be just like them. And that night, he crept into the big tent and made his way up the ladder. He had no fear, even at such a young age. But then, his foot slipped. His head cracked against the ladder as he fell, plunging towards the floor far below. And that was the first time he fell, but it would not be the last. Now, he lays in the snow, high up on a mountain, thinking about that first time and how it never made him fear the fall. But now, he's afraid of heights, and he's trying desperately to find himself again. Haley pokes him and sniffs, and Dick opens his eyes and smiles at the dog. "It's okay, girl. I'm just having a rest," he says as he gets to his feet and picks up his backpack, continuing their long journey. To get back what he lost, he needs to climb again, Dick thinks to himself as he looks to the mountains in the distance. 2 weeks ago, Heartless, alongside his aide Gerald, have gathered together the criminals of Bludhaven. They sit around a table blindfolded as they wait for the masked killer. Many of you recently worked for Blockbuster or Maroney. You work for me now, Heartless tells them as their blindfolds are removed. But one of the larger goons gets to his feet. "I choose who I work for," he growls. But Heartless shakes his head. "No, not in this case," he says. He turns to Tony Zuko and asks him to turn on the lights in the next room. The lights click on to reveal children behind a glass wall. "I assume you recognize your children?" Heartless asks. And the goon's face drops as he sees his daughter banging against the glass, calling out for her father. Anger passes through him and he reaches for Heartless, but the killer pushes him away and uses his special weapon to rip the heart from the man's chest. There's a pause in the room and Heartless turns back to the others. This is probably for the best. What I'm saying will be more convincing with this visual aid, Heartless says, explaining that if anyone moves against him, he will take the heart from their chest and force their children to grow up in the world as orphans. Of course, I know threats don't pay the bills, and so you will be handsomely rewarded for your service, Heartless says. Dick Grayson has changed the city above us. I've let it rise, but now it is time to tear it down, Heartless tells them. His men move around the room, branding the gathered criminals. You are joining something larger than yourselves. Today, you will wear my mark and stay hidden. And tomorrow, the Heartless army will reveal itself in Gotham, he says. The next night in Gotham, Barbara and Dick are getting ready for their big evening. I don't think I'll ever be ready for something like this. I feel like I'm debasing myself, Dick says with a sigh as he straightens his tie, Haley watching them from the floor. It's debasing for all the right reasons. And Haley is very proud of you, Barbara says as she moves across the room and grabs Dick by the arm. Come on, Boy Wonder. Let's go work the room, she says as they enter the Alfred Pennyworth Foundation fundraiser. They greet Bruce and Damien, who keeps pulling at his bow tie. I put a suit on for you, Damien hisses at Dick. Barbara smiles at him. You look very dapper, she notes. Dick smiles and leans down to his little brother. Your sacrifice is noted and appreciated, Damien, he says. Bruce motions to the stage and informs Dick that he'll introduce him. Bring the dog, Bruce notes as he looks down at Haley, noting that Dick is trying to manipulate everyone for the right reasons. As he moves off into the crowd, Dick prepares himself for his speech, but a voice calls out to him from across the room, and he turns to see Shelton Lyle walking towards them. Who's the walking slimy grin? Damien questions. Shelton Lyle. He owns a predatory pharmaceutical company. When we were younger, I broke his teeth, Dick says sideways to Damien. That makes me happy, Damien replies. Shelton greets the family, commenting that he's looking forward to investing in the foundation. Meanwhile, Bruce has stepped on stage, greeting the crowd and introducing himself. Alfred Pennyworth was a billionaire, and I never knew. Despite his great means, he chose to serve. He dedicated his life to me and my children, and he helped to shape some of the very best people I know. My parents also believed in serving. Martha and Thomas Wayne did all they could to help this city. I wish they'd had a chance to meet the man who's about to take the podium. I wish they'd met their grandson, because I know that they'd be as proud of Dick Grayson as I am. Bruce says with a smile as Dick steps onto the stage. But the moment is immediately ruined as a reporter speaks up from the crowd, questioning if that were true and demanding answers to the evidence that Dick Grayson and the Foundation had dealings with the crime lord known as Blockbuster. Dick is shocked by this information as the man insists that millions of dollars were transferred from Blockbuster to the Foundation upon his death. But suddenly, the entire building turns red as the fire alarms begin to blare and the sprinklers go off. Bruce steps forward, asking for the crowd to file out in an orderly fashion, but Dick is still in shock and hasn't moved. In the surging crowd, Shelton looks to Gerald. "Gerald, get ready. We're going to carve out a heart," he says. Sirens blare and flash red as the sprinklers rain water down on the party, dousing the Alfred Pennyworth Foundation fundraiser. Dick leans down and pats Haley, comforting the young dog. But the family has already begun to move into action. "We can't risk the fire escape if the fire is below us. There's a connecting walkway to the next building 2 floors above us," Damien says. Dick nods and hands the leash to Barbara, asking her and Damien to get everyone heading in that direction while he and Bruce make sure that everyone is out of the ballroom. Barbara nods and turns to the crowd. "Everyone, there is no reason to panic. Please, calmly and quickly, follow this adorable dog," Barbara calls out. While Damien and Barbara lead the group through the building, Dick and Bruce move through the crowd, calling out instructions for everyone. Dick feels a tap on his shoulder. "I still have questions, Mr. Grayson," the reporter from earlier says. Dick nods, his mind still reeling from the idea that there's evidence that he dealt with Blockbuster. "And I'm sure I have answers for you, Mr. Waghorn, but surely they can wait until we're not standing in a burning building," Dick says, motioning for the man to keep moving. But Shelton rushes out of the crowd, shouting to Dick that he can't find his butler Gerald. Dick turns back to Bruce and asks him to keep getting everyone out of the building. With these words, he turns and rushes back into the ballroom with Shelton. But what Dick doesn't know is they're being watched on the cameras, and Zuko informs Shelton that the ballroom is cleared. "Thank you, Zuko," Shelton whispers into his radio with a smile, ordering the mob boss to start mixing in gas with the smoke. He watches as Dick Grayson gets a little farther away from him and reaches behind a bar, pulling out a duffel bag. "Gerald, are you here?" Dick shouts as he continues to push through the smoke. He sees a man's legs around a corner, and thinking that Gerald has collapsed, he rushes forward to help him. "Gerald, you're going to be okay," Dick says as he rounds the corner, but he stops short as Gerald sits up wearing a gas mask.
"Yes, I am gonna be okay. You? Not so much,"
Gerald says with a smile. Dick turns quickly, but finds Shelton behind him with a gas mask as well. And suddenly, the world begins to shift around Dick as the gas begins to take effect. Shelton smiles at him, gloating and explaining that the gas will make him dizzy and won't allow him to remember anything that is happening.
"There's also a sedative, so no one will question when it appears you've collapsed of smoke inhalation,"
Shelton says. "What are doing?" Dick gasps as the world spins around him. One thought racing through his mind. He has to get out. He lashes out at Shelton, striking him hard across the face. But it doesn't seem to have any effect.
"You certainly do know how to throw a punch,"
Shelton says with a nod. But he steps forward and hits Dick hard enough to send him flying into the wall.
"It's time for another flying Grayson to fall,"
Shelton says as he stands over Dick's body. The world goes black around him and memories shift through Dick's mind. He's recently fallen off a ladder as a young boy and wakes up in the hospital. His parents are arguing with Mr. Haley about the trio staying behind until Dick is better. "The Flying Graysons are our star attraction! We're a traveling circus, John! We have to travel!" Haley was shouting. But John suggests someone that can take over for them temporarily. "He's a little rough around the edges, but he can fly," John explains. They all turn as they realize Dick is waking up. His mother hugs him tightly, and Dick groans from the pain. "He might be a little broken for that, Mary," John points out. They ask Dick why he would climb the trapeze alone. "I'm sorry, I just wanted to be like you guys," young Dick tells them. In the present, Shelton and Gerald come rushing out of the hotel with Dick tossed over their shoulder, shouting for help. Grayson went back in. He pulled Gerald out, but then he just collapsed. Shelton tells Barbara as she rushes over. The EMTs rush over and take Dick, making sure that he is stable and placing him in the back of the ambulance, explaining to everyone that they can join him at the hospital. As the flashing vehicle pulls away, Bruce is just standing there, watching it. "I can see why you're proud of him. When you see him, thank him for me," Shelton says, walking away with a smile that no one else can see. Unknown to everyone, the ambulance pulls into a side alley shortly after leaving the scene. The back doors are opened, and Zuko is standing there. "How's our patient?" Zuko asks, motioning everyone to get out of the ambulance. The EMT begins to push the gurney towards a truck waiting nearby, but Heartless steps out of the shadows. "Find Grayson's phone and destroy it before you move him. It can be used to locate him," Heartless says. The EMT nods and begins to check Dick's pockets, but what he finds isn't a cell phone. In shock, he pulls out a Nightwing mask and holds it up. "This isn't a phone," he whispers. Heartless stares at it for a moment before reaching out and taking it, crushing it in his hand. Zuko looks at it in shock before glaring down at Dick. "Dick Grayson is f***ing Nightwing? There are two people I hate in this world, and he's both of them!" Zuko growls as the EMT looks at them both. What do you want to do now?" he asks. Heartless ponders this for a moment before motioning to Gerald. The butler steps up from behind the EMT and slashes him across the throat. "Gerald, what the hell are you doing?" Zuko calls out. "No one else can know," the butler says. He turns to Heartless, explaining that they can use this to their advantage. Heartless stares at the unconscious man. "Yes, this is a gift. This makes everything better," Heartless whispers, looking down at the Nightwing mask. Later, the world comes back into focus as Dick Grayson regains consciousness. A siren blares nearby as he staggers to his feet. Nearby, a body lays face down. He moves forward and rolls the man over, recognizing the reporter from the Fundraiser. But now, the man has a hole in his chest and his heart is missing. Dick looks nearby and sees Heartless's gun laying on the ground. He picks it up and stares at it in shock. But suddenly, the door to the roof bursts open and a SWAT team rushes out. "Don't move, Heartless!" one of the men shouts. And that's when Dick realizes that he is dressed as Heartless, and the cops think that he did this. He glances at the weapon in his hand, but knows that he can't leave it behind since it'll have his prints on it. He rushes forward and flips over the cop's head, running towards the edge of the building. Gunfire echoes behind him and cracks off the concrete. He runs, reaching the ledge, preparing to jump. But he can't do it. Whatever mental block he has rears up once more, and he becomes dizzy, backing away from the edge with fear as a bullet hits him in the shoulder and Dick staggers, allowing the cops to rush up behind him and toss him to the ground. He tries to struggle, but one of the cops grabs a hold of the Heartless mask and rips it off his face. And the cops all stare in shock. "Oh shit, it's Dick Grayson!" one of them gasps. Cameras flash as Commissioner Maggie Sawyer steps out of the hospital and faces the crowd of reporters. She informs them that there was a murder and that someone has been brought in for questioning. Though she refuses to confirm that it was Dick Grayson, she doesn't have to. The reporters begin to rattle off facts about how Dick Grayson can be linked to the whereabouts of Heartless, and how he and his organization had been seen conversing with a criminal known as Blockbuster. Also taking into account that his sister, formerly Melinda Zuko, had been pushing for Dick Grayson's charity organization, which leads many to believe the idea that Dick Grayson not only has ties to the mob, but is also secretly heartless. Inside the hospital, Dick can vaguely hear these questions and facts playing on the television, but his mind is still swimming from the anesthesia that the doctors have given him for his injuries. Not thinking straight, but Heartless knows who I am. He'll know where to find me. I can't stay here, Dick thinks as he looks down at the handcuffs that pin him to the bed. But in moments, they fall, useless. Meanwhile, at their apartment, Oracle is on the line with the Titans, who don't want to leave Dick in police custody. The Titans are already trying to win back the people's trust after the Beast World event. They can't be seen aiding a suspected serial killer, Oracle reminds them, asking them to sit tight until they hear back from Bruce or her directly. She hangs up and closes her eyes with a sigh, but turns as Haley starts to bark. "Hey, girl," Dick says as he leans down and pets the dog, practically collapsing in the doorway. Barbara rushes to his side and supports him, shocked by his injuries. She pulls him to the nearby table. "Sit down, shirt off. I'll redress your wounds," she says softly when she finds his gunshot wound. "They believed I was a killer trying to flee the scene," he reminds her, and she begins to patch him up, pointing out that by escaping custody, it makes him look guilty. "I already look guilty," Dick points out. She shakes her head and looks into his eyes. "We can clear your name. We just have to tell them who you really are," she says. But Dick shakes his head. "We can't do that. Revealing my secret risks exposing the rest of the family. I would never ask," he begins to say. But Barbara interrupts him, explaining that it was Bruce's idea, and the rest of the family have already agreed to it. Even Jason. Everyone agreed instantly. There was no discussion. "We're all willing to give up our identities," she says. Dick thanks her, but explains that he needs to unmask the real Heartless to clear his name. "And I can't do that while I'm afraid," he says, reminding her of his new fear of heights. She explains that Batman examined his blood and Dick has traces of a toxin in his system, but not enough that it should still be affecting him biologically. "I can't fight Heartless while I'm fighting myself and losing. There's somewhere I need to go," Dick says as he stands. Barbara questions him, and Dick explains that he needs to go see the man who helped him get over his first fear of heights. "Fine, but take Haley with you. Quests usually involve a lot of walking. It'll be good for her," Barbara tells him. In the past, young Dick Grayson sits in the stands and stares at the trapeze, the same one that he asked his parents not to use anymore since he fell. Footsteps sound behind him, and Dick turns to see the new trapeze artist. "I hear you're the reason I still have a job around here," the man says with a smile as he sits next to Dick. "Heard about your accident. How you asked your parents not to go back to work," the man continues. "I don't want them to fall," Dick says softly. The man smiles and nods, telling Dick that he understands. But he also knows that Dick is meant to be great, to fly through the air just like his parents. "I was like you as a kid, always scared. It's no way to be. I'd like to help you get back up there," he says as he glances at Dick. "But you'd have to be brave, and it'd have to be our secret. Your parents wouldn't like it very much." "So how's that sound?" the man asks. Dick thinks about it for a moment before nodding. "I'd like that, mister," he says. The man holds out his hand for Dick to shake. "It's Boston brand," he says as he introduces himself. And so, Dick Grayson sets out on his quest with the faithful Haley. The trip takes him across the world as the pair are journeying through the Tibetan mountains, finally arriving at the ancient city of Nanda Parbat. As Dick walks up to the steps, the doors open to reveal Deadman floating before them. "Nightwing, you're doing this all wrong," Brand says. Dick cocks an eyebrow at him. "Huh? You're supposed to collapse outside the walls after your arduous journey. The monks would then bring you inside, and then when you open your eyes weakly, you discover me floating over you, and then you say something like, am I dead? And I say, no, I'm the only ghost here, Deadman says in exasperation. Dick shrugs. Sorry I didn't collapse? I came prepared for the journey, and I do a lot of cardio, he explains. He looks to Boston Brand and explains that he needs help again. He needs to get over his fear. And Boston nods. Of course. It's worse this time. Last time you were afraid, it was after you fell. This time, it's after your parents jumped and never came back. Meanwhile, in Bludhaven, Heartless comes on the television, declaring that the city has finally learned his true identity. He explains that he set out to make the city a haven, but not a haven for children, as he told everyone, but a haven for crime and criminals. Before anyone does anything stupid, know that I have many children imprisoned, and have left one of their fathers dead on the pier. Another parent will die every half hour until the Titans leave this city, Heartless explains. On the rooftop of their building, Barbara makes a call, asking the Titans to leave and make sure that everyone sees them. It doesn't take long for the young heroes to boom tube away on their front lawn. But before he ends his broadcast, Heartless leaves one final thought. However, I invite Nightwing to stay in the city. We have some unfinished business. That is, unless he is too afraid to rise to the occasion. Heartless gloats before signing off. On her building, Barbara turns to Batman. He knows about Nightwing's fear, she says. Batman nods, believing that Heartless was the one who infected Dick. He reaches up and pulls off his mask. You're sure about this? Barbara asks him. Bruce nods as he pulls off his cape, throwing his costume to the ground. Dick would do the same for me. He has done the same for me, Bruce says softly as he reaches for a new set of clothes. Bludhaven has lost too much. It needs a hero, Bruce says as he pulls on the blue and black domino mask and looks out over the city. Bludhaven needs Nightwing. Dick Grayson hangs from a high wire rope, memories of the last time he trained with Boston Brand as a child flashing through his mind. Now, when Dick opens his mouth, it is Boston's words that escape his lips. It's okay, I'm here with you, Dick, Boston says. Deadman's spirit exits Dick's body, leaving the hero hanging from the rope. But you have to do the next part by yourself, Boston tells him. But Dick is immediately gripped with fear. Brand tries to coach him through his fear, just like he did when Dick was a child, but it doesn't work. Overcome with fear, Dick blacks out and plummets from the rope. When he opens his eyes, Deadman is floating over him. What happened? Dick groans. Deadman shrugs. Well, the good news is you dropped. The bad news is you were unconscious when you did, Deadman explains. He folds his legs into a yoga pose and hovers over the hero. There's something holding you back, something you're hiding from yourself, deep down, Boston explains, telling Dick that until he faces it, he won't be able to deal with heights. Dick leaps down from the net, frustrated with himself. Boston follows him, still floating through the air. Exposure therapy is one thing, but you also need to know how to relax, which is something your entire family is notoriously bad at. You need an advanced course in relaxation, Boston tells him. Dick glances at him. What are you thinking? Scented candles and a bubble bath? He jokes. A short time later, Dick is sitting in a bath, surrounded by candles. He puts his head back and sighs in frustration, his mind flashing over the past events, trying to figure out who could have possibly poisoned him. But none of his recent villains seem right, or would have had the chance to administer a poison. Suddenly, it all snaps together. Dick sits up sharply and jumps out of the bath. He grabs a towel and rushes through the temple. Haley followed close behind and barked, unsure of the excitement, but glad to be involved. Dick rounds a corner and sees Deadman nearby and starts to shout for him. Deadman, he yells. Boston turns around in surprise. You're kind of failing at relaxing, unless you find it soothing to be naked and screaming, he points out. But Dick ignores him. Do you have internet here? He asks, still dripping on the floor. Deadman cocks an eyebrow at him. It's an ancient temple on top of a mountain. Of course we do, he says simply. The people here have to do a lot of work remotely. In a short time, Dick has made a connection with Oracle back in Bludhaven. He quickly explains that he remembered where he might have been poisoned. At Shell Pharmaceuticals. When we helped Double Dare, Shelton Lyle offered me a glass of water, Dick begins to say. But Barbara immediately cuts him off. And you drank it? The hologram of Oracle yells. Dick shrugs and looks sheepish. I'd fought security guards, come through a gunfight and a train explosion. I was thirsty and didn't think much of it at the time, he tells her. Oracle quickly fills Dick in that Heartless is posing as Dick Grayson and that it seems that he knew Dick had been poisoned. Shelton Lyle is Heartless, he finally says. Barbara pauses for a moment. Maybe. Do what you need to do. I'll have Nightwing 2 investigate Shell Pharmaceuticals, Barbara says. Dick nods and prepares to end the line, but pauses suddenly, realizing what she said. Huh? He asks. Back in Bludhaven, Nightwing punches a goon in the face and whirls, elbowing another goon that was coming up from behind, dropping them both. Suddenly, his radio crackles. Nightwing 2, Oracle calls. Bruce pulls out his Eskrima stick and files a grapple line. What is it? He asks. Barbara quickly fills him in on what Dick told her as Nightwing 2 swings through the air. Nightwing thinks Shelton Lyle could be Heartless, Bruce surmises. He reaches out and throws a wingding, taking out a camera. Bruce lands and quickly kicks in the door to Shell Pharmaceuticals. I'll look into it while I'm here. I was already looking into Lyle. Going radio silent, Bruce reports as he moves into the building. Back at Nanda Parbat, Dick knows that he needs to return to his city. He needs to finish this fight, but he can't move past his fear. Boston puts a hand on his shoulder. You still need to face whatever it is that you've pushed down so deep inside you. But I can put you in a place where you'll have no choice but to face your fear of leaping, Boston promises. The next day, Boston has taken control of Dick's body and climbed to the highest peak on the mountain. He leaves Grayson's body after tossing his rope away. All right, Grayson, there's no way back up, and the parachute on your back is the only way down, Boston says as Dick clings to the wall. His chest is already tightening. If you want to leave here, you're going to have to fall. Good luck, kid, Boston says before drifting away, leaving Dick alone on a small ledge. The day drifts into night and memories flood back through his mind. As a child, Dick imagines his parents leaping out, the trapeze snapping, and them falling to their deaths. But they look up at him, calling his name. You belong down here with us. You know you do, his parents call. Boston returns the next day, finding Dick still on the ledge. Hey, you've been stuck here for 24 hours. I know I said I'd leave you, but I'm a ghost, not inhuman, he says as he reaches a hand out for Grayson. Dick looks up at him, tears in his eyes. I know what I was hiding, he says. He stands, thanking Boston for helping him. Thank you for helping me get this far, he says. He leaps off into the air, a smile on his face. I'm ready to fall, Dick calls out. A week later in Bludhaven, Barbara is sitting at her computer when a voice calls from behind her. Oracle, Dick says. Barbara turns in shock to see Dick and Haley standing in the doorway. She rushes forward and leaps into his arms. Are you okay? Are you back? She whispers. He nods. Yeah, it wasn't pretty, but I'm back, he tells her. A cough sounds nearby, and Dick looks up to see Bruce in a Nightwing costume. Bruce, you filled in for me. How did you do it being me? Dick asks as he claps Bruce on the shoulder. I patrolled each night. The suit is snug. I quipped. Twice, Bruce tells him. Dick smiles. Impressive. Bruce explains that they found the fear toxin poison that Lyle used, and that he is most likely Heartless, but he hasn't been seen in weeks. Dick nods and promises that they will finish this, but he needs to talk to his sister first. Meanwhile, at the home of the mayor, Melinda Zuko is being held by thugs, with her father, Tony Zuko, holding a smoking gun. The house is destroyed, and the goons are preparing to bring Melinda before Heartless. Suddenly, the window shatters inward, and Nightwing leaps among the goons, moving fast and disarming them, knocking them to the ground with his Eskrima sticks. Zuko whirls and rushes out of the home, running down the stairs, his phone already in his hand. "Heartless! He's here! Dick Grayson is here!" Zuko shouts at Heartless, but Nightwing is there, slamming into Zuko and knocking him into the wall. "I saw your face!" Zuko shouts at him. Nightwing shrugs. "And I have your face on camera on the night my parents were murdered. I have the proof, and I need to see justice done." Dick snaps at him. Zuko lashes out, trying to punch the hero, but Dick dodges the blow and slams him into the wall again. "I worked something out, Zuko. Something that I always knew, and the guilt of which was pinning me down," Dick growls. He reveals that the night his parents were killed, they had changed their routine, that Dick was supposed to be the first on the rope. Heartless listens over the phone while Dick talks. Dick hits Zuko again. "You wanted to punish Haley's circus and my parents, but they were never the target. My parents weren't supposed to die. I was," Dick shouts. Later, Nightwing stands by, the lights of police cars flashing behind him. He sighs and turns back, watching as they put Tony Zuko in the back of the vehicle. It's over. His parents' killer will be brought to justice. The car pulls away, and Nightwing moves off, but the hero is unaware that the police cruiser hasn't gone all that far when the passenger pulls out his service pistol and puts it to his partner's head. "Pull over here, Mac," Jorge whispers. Mac stares at him in shock. "I'm sorry, man. He has my kid," Jorge says. Meanwhile, Shelton is in his hideout, strapped to several machines that continue to pump and monitor his heart. Gerald leans over and taps a few buttons on his tablet. "You need to be careful today, Shelton. Don't overtax yourself. Blockbuster's heart has lasted longer than any other, but your body is still wearing out," he warns. Shelton nods and sits up, reaching for his Heartless mask. "That's okay. We'll have our replacement soon," he says as he pulls on the mask, promising that Dick Grayson's heart will soon beat within his chest. Later, Dick watches the news over Barbara's shoulder. Heartless has come before the city, claiming to be Dick Grayson. "People of Bludhaven, I want you to know this is coming. I want you to know that you're about to lose. In 1 hour, my people will level Haven," Heartless tells the city, ending his transmission with a smile. Dick sighs and turns away. The rest of the Bat family reports in. They are scouring the city, searching for the children that Heartless has kidnapped. "Tim has a lead," Damien reports in. Dick stands over the bathroom sink and begins to shave his beard. "Of course he does. Keep me posted. I'm heading out," Dick says before signing off. Barbara looks at him, asking where he's going. Dick smiles at her, finishes up, and reaches for Haley's leash. "To clear my name, to take down a monster, and to walk the dog," he tells her with a smile. An hour later, Heartless leads his army of thugs towards the Haven gates, bulldozers at their backs. They pause briefly as the citizens of Bludhaven stand before them. "Look at all these gifts. All these adults are ready to give up their lives for children. Wishes really do come true," Heartless whispers. He motions to the bulldozers, and they rumble forward, pushing past the people and slamming into the statue of Alfred Pennyworth. But someone else steps out of the park. "Heartless!" Dick Grayson calls as he steps out of the park with Haley by his side. The crowd gasped in shock, pulling out their phones, snapping pictures and live streaming, murmuring about how he wasn't really Heartless. Dick steps up to Heartless and stands before him. "You tried to frame me because you wanted to hurt this city. But the people of Bludhaven are all too used to lies, and they're resilient. They've had to be, Dick says, motioning to the crowd. Heartless smiles and leans forward. I know who you are, Nightwing, Heartless whispers. Dick smiles and leans in as well. And I know who you are, Shelton, he whispers back, giving Heartless pause. I'm ready to face the full consequences of my dual identities going public. Are you? Dick asks. But suddenly, his phone buzzes and he turns away. Hold up, I have to take this, Dick says, holding up a finger. It's his sister, the mayor, informing him that the children have been rescued and are in police custody. Heartless no longer has any power. Dick nods and turns to the crowd, informing them that everyone's children are safe, that Heartless no longer has power over them. The army of masked goons throw down their weapons, and Dick smiles as Shelton's army disappears in moments. You know the difference between your people and mine? My people actually like me, Dick tells him. The goons suddenly rush at Shelton, but he knocks a few of them away. Dick turns to a kid and hands him Haley's leash. Heartless is going to run now. Hold my dog, Elliot? He asks. The kid nods and Dick takes off after Heartless, who has turned and dashed from the park and begins to weave his way through traffic. Gerald, we're leaving the city. You have Zuko? Heartless shouts into his phone. At the docks, Gerald nods. I have him, he confirms, letting Heartless know that the boat is waiting for them. In the park, Haley doesn't feel like waiting and pulls free of Elliot, dashing after Dick. As he chases Heartless, Dick quickly changes into Nightwing, leaping over cars to follow the villain. But Heartless leaps over an overpass and lands 50 feet below at the docks, confident that Dick Grayson is still afraid to fall. But Nightwing has fixed his broken mind, and he doesn't hesitate, leaping from the great height and launching himself at Heartless, kicking him hard in the face and knocking his mask away. He lands in a roll and comes up in a crouch, but Gerald is waiting, a pistol aimed at the hero's head. You, he growls, thumbing back the hammer on the weapon. You think you can hurt my child? Gerald demands. But there's a growl and a bark. Haley has caught up. She leaps forward, biting into Gerald's arm. He tries to shake her loose, stumbling towards the edge of the docks. He whirls and tosses her away, the pistol going off in his hand. Haley lets out a yelp of pain and falls to the ground, with Gerald tumbling into the water. Zuko rushes to the edge of the docks, looking into the water, but he's unable to see Gerald. Meanwhile, Nightwing moves to Haley's side, cradling the wounded dog. But Shelton pushes past him, his heart-tearing weapon in hand. This all started because of you, Shelton growls at the crime boss, his heart smoking in his chest. I thought I modeled myself after you. I didn't know who I was until the flying Graysons hit the ground. But you weren't even trying to murder the parents, Shelton gasps, raising the weapon and aiming it at Zuko's head. Nightwing looks up, reaching out and shouting for Shelton to stop. But the villain smiles. At least I get to take something else from you, Dick, he snaps. He fires the weapon. The extending arm ripped through Zuko's head and sent him crashing into the water. I get to take your justice, he says with an evil smile. Dick lays Haley gently back on the ground and stalks towards his enemy. Shelton moves quickly and takes a swing, but Nightwing easily dodges it and punches him in the face. Another attack comes, but Nightwing dodges past this one as well, allowing Shelton to crack the concrete with his fist. Are you angry, hero? Shelton snarls, but Nightwing shakes his head. I'm just over it. Over you. Over everyone like you, he says. Nightwing moves in fast, hitting Shelton several times, dodging past his erratic attacks. The self-obsessed, the greedy, the entitled, Nightwing says with a sigh, hitting Shelton again and again. Purple smoke continues to swirl from Shelton's chest. He reaches down and picks up a massive crate, but he struggles and drops it, looking down at his smoking chest. "What's wrong with you?" Nightwing asks. Shelton falls to his knees, sweat breaking out on his forehead. "Blockbuster's heart," he gasps. Nightwing moves forward. He leans down to his enemy, the man that has tried to destroy his life. "Tell me how to save you," Nightwing says simply. Shelton looks up at him in shock. "Even now?" he gasps. Nightwing nods. "Even now," he says softly. Shelton smiles weakly. His arm suddenly snaps up and he digs his fingers into Nightwing's chest, drawing blood. "You can give me your heart!" he shouts. But Nightwing grabs his arm and pushes him away, shoving Shelton to the ground. "You're pathetic. There's nothing you can do to save me," he gasps. And Nightwing just stares down at him. "What a waste. An entire life lived, and you added nothing to the world," he says. But Shelton shakes his head, reminding Dick that everyone will remember him. Shelton Lyle, the villain known as Heartless. But Dick shakes his head, explaining that he will make sure that no one will know he existed. That Oracle will erase Shelton Lyle from history, and people will only know Heartless as just some other villain that couldn't beat them. Shelton's eyes widen in horror at the thought, but his heart finally burns out and he dies on the docks. Dick puts the mask back on Shelton's face. Just another savage evil that couldn't beat us. A reminder that this city can fight monsters and win, he says as he picks up Haley and walks away. Later, Dick kneels before his parents' grave, explaining to them everything that happened, telling them how he set up trusts for the children that were orphaned by Heartless. "I'm sorry I haven't visited before now," he whispers. He is joined by his sister Melinda and her wife, and he introduces them to their parents. "I'll give you guys a moment," he says as he walks away. He hugs Barbara, who waits nearby. "Thanks for being here," he whispers. She smiles at him. "It's part of the package, Boy Wonder," she tells him. Melinda and her wife walk away, and Dick goes back to the grave, putting down a set of flowers. "These are called Pennyworth Blue. Alfred bred them. He looked after me after you," Dick says, his voice choked for a moment. "You would have liked him," he whispers. He glances back over his shoulder at Barbara. "Mom, Dad, that's Babs. I hope I get to marry her one day," he whispers. He finally stands up. "Anyway, I just wanted to finally come and say thank you. I love you. And I wanted to tell you that I found a new home. My heart is here," Dick tells them. Later, Nightwing and Batgirl sit on a construction scaffolding, Haley wagging her tail next to them as they look out over the city of Bludhaven. For all its good and bad, it is their home. And that was the full story for Tom Taylor's Nightwing, issues 78 to 118. What did you guys think of this great story? It was certainly one of my favorites, but let me know down below. And like and subscribe to the channel if you want more full stories every Tuesday. I'm Dan with Comicstorian, and we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Benny.